this is the place to do it. Hey, John Bartell here. You know, winter is my favorite time of year to hit the back roads. So whether you're hitting the slopes for a day of skiing or maybe sledding down one of the many sled parks here in California, I've got plenty of ideas for your winter travels. First off, we're gonna hit Bear Valley, where the only way to get around is on a snowmobile. It happens every year. When the snow becomes too thick to plow on Highway 4 in Alpine County, Ebbets Pass is closed. And it's at that point that the whine of two-stroke engines replaces the sound of cars. Well, most of us use cars or maybe a bicycle in our daily commute, but here in the little mountain town of Bear Valley, the snowmobile is the only way to get around. On average, Bear Valley gets around 5 feet of snow each year. The community isn't big, about 100 or so permanent residents and 400 or so vacation homes, which drums up plenty of business for local snowmobile taxi driver Don Hicks.
Yeah, and all the cabins have my number, and that's what I do.
There's about 9 miles of unplowed snow covering the roads in the residential portion of Bear Valley. And up the road is the local ski resort, which is conveniently placed above the home so residents can ski right to their front doorstep.
I tell them to call me when you get into town, and I'm 5 minutes away.
It may take Don a trip or two to get vacationers' luggage up the hill, but his tow-behind trailer makes fast work of it. This sure beats walking! Now, you don't have to live up here to enjoy snowmobiling. You can always rent one. You're definitely gonna want to remember to bring your sunglasses or goggles. Bear Valley Snowmobile Rental is one of the few places that allows you to go on a self-guided tour. I, however, opted to ride along with Steve Harima for a little history lesson.
The Washoe would come from the east, and the Miwok would come from the west. For 10,000 years, they've been meeting in a place like this.
Native American and mining landmarks are scattered all along Highway 4 in the Ebbets Pass area, and so are a number of alpine lakes and cabins. It's remote up here, and a snowmobile is about the only way to experience a view, just like this.
And we're looking at the Stanislaus River drainage right now.
Although it's advised to stay on the groomed trails, there are a few opportunities to open the throttle up in an open meadow, like the one that Terry Passot and her husband visit every year.
Usually there are others, a lot of private people come out here, but it's just peaceful and quiet, and the beauty is just phenomenal.
Well, a snowmobile will get you to your destination fast, but if you want to take the scenic route, I suggest heading to Lake Tahoe and taking a horse-drawn sleigh ride. Even on a foggy Lake Tahoe day, you can hear it. Does it remind you of anything?
Giddy up, let's go.
Dashing through the snow.
That's right, sleigh bells on a real sleigh.
O'er the fields we go.
You know the song, but have you actually ever taken a ride on a one-horse open sleigh?
Yeah, this one here holds 4 to 6. We have another one that just holds 2 people.
Dwight Borgous is a sleigh driver and owner of Borgous Sleigh Rides at Lake Tahoe. And if you bring his horse Duke a little treat, he may just take you for a ride. These are not very good. Not very. Once you've paid your fare to Duke, Dwight will give his reins a little shake, and your scenic tour of Lake Tahoe's Sand Harbor Beach will begin.
Normally right here we get a fantastic view of Lake Tahoe. It's just amazing, but right now there's a bunch of fog.
Let's hope that clears here in a bit. Yeah, the fog didn't clear up, but luckily we were able to acquire some video from the nice folks over at Visit Reno Tahoe to show you what it normally looks like. For 50 years now, the Borgous family has provided sleigh and carriage rides to Tahoe tourists, a business which was built on a fond memory that Dwight's father, Sam Borgous, had as a kid.
Always a fun memory for my dad when he was growing up in Massachusetts to go for sleigh rides.
Funny enough, Massachusetts is where the song Jingle Bells was actually written.
Going down Salem Avenue outside of Boston, they would have sleighs where they'd race.
Dwight tells me those sleigh races often involved questionable driving and getting upsot, which in the old days means getting drunk.
They get stuck in a drifted bank. And
I don't remember that
that's the second verse.
Okay.
Yeah.
A simple internet search will lead you to some disappointing truths about the song, but long story short, all ends well as the inebriated sleigh riders go dashing through the snow.
It's more of a party song than anything else.
Alcohol is not provided on Borgous Sleigh Ride, but what is provided is a romantic experience. Dwight says on average, he witnesses a whopping 15 to 20 marriage proposals each winter.
And I can say that we have 100% success.
Oh, all right.
All they want for Christmas is true love.
Speaking of romance, Duke and Dwight actually had a small part in HBO Max's reality show, 12 Dates of Christmas.
Come on, Duke, cut. You can do it.
Duke is an 18-year-old Belgian draft horse, one of the strongest horse breeds, and that comes in handy when avoiding some melting snow. Duke powered through.
Yeah, he's a strong guy.
One downside to Duke's horsepower, his exhaust.
You know,
Oh, Duke. He really does like us.
He's very happy.
He's very happy.
He's the happiest horse you'll ever meet.
Well, I guess that's where the verse "laughing all the way" came from. Fart jokes aside, Borgous Sleigh Ride truly is a memorable trip. Not just because of the beautiful views and the romantic setting, but because of the bond you get to experience between sleigh driver and his horse.
I've always been part of horses, so horses will always be a part of my life as long as we got a safe place and fun place to do sleigh rides.
If you're looking to hit the slopes for a little skiing, you may want to consider heading to Lassen County and hitching a ride on California's only gas-powered rope tow at Coppervale Ski Hill. Between Susanville and the town of Westwood on Highway 36, there's a lonely open sign. At first, it's a little unclear what is open, but if you drive down the bumpy, snow-covered road, it'll lead you to a ski hill. And that's where you'll find 70-year-old retired logger, Norm Wilson, working on this thing. This is just a mishmash of parts.
It is, but you know, if you didn't want to walk up the hill, you did what you had to do to make it work.
Sandwiched between the Sierra and the Cascade Mountains is Lassen County's Coppervale Ski Hill, home to one of California's oldest continually operating gas-powered rope tows.
This is basically a framework of a truck with a rear end of a Dodge.
Coppervale is a mainly volunteer-based ski hill started by a group of locals from Westwood and Susanville in the late 1930s. Why Coppervale?
Well, this was a copper mine years and years ago, like in the 30s.
The original lift was a little more primitive than the current one. Picture a car chained to a tree at the top of the hill with a rope wrapped around the tire rim. Since then, though, there's been some improvements.
Updated with
Safety
stuff, so you can't put your fingers in there.
Lassen College took over the ski area in the 1940s and started the first official ski classes using this rope tow.
you're definitely going to want to have a strong grip when doing this.
Then in 1977, a hand-me-down Pama lift was purchased from Alpine Meadows and Tahoe so that skiers could make it to the top of the mountain. What's a Pama lift, you ask?
You sit on them and in between your legs, and you ride up.
Every time you hit these pulleys, it's a little rough right in that region there.
The Pama lift has its own safety equipment. At the end is a shutoff wire of sorts that keeps you from going too far.
Then this gets knocked off and the lift turns off.
Is that just an old jumper cable?
This is a jumper cable, yeah.
Don't let the primitive nature of the equipment fool you. It's all tested and approved by state regulators. And with an elevation of just over 9,000 feet and 7 black diamond runs, Norm says Coppervale has an impeccable safety record.
And we only have like 4 or 5 people that get injured here, you know, because you're on your feet.
Because there's no high-flying ski lifts, Coppervale is an ideal place to learn to ski or snowboard. Just ask Kylie England.
They're really nice, and they've been helping me figure out how to do this, and they've even came over and grabbed me and helped me navigate how to go down. If you go anywhere in Tahoe, they charge you $300 for that.
Yeah.
Even dogs get free lessons here.
Yay! Bring it in. Emmy, bring the sled.
Because this is a community-run ski hill, visitors get a community feeling, and Norm's wife Debbie will even give outsiders community pricing.
$30 all day, $25 half day. We do ask for a $20 donation for rentals.
For the past 40 years, Norm, his wife, and many other volunteers have put their heart and soul into this place.
It's really emotional for me because I was able to make this available.
At Coppervale, accessibility for all comes before new chairlifts, modern amenities, and high-priced lessons. Here, it's all about the memories and the people.
Why would you want to put yourself through this for 40 years? And that's really the reason why you do it, It's not about you, it's about helping others.
Well, you're gonna wanna bundle up for this next location. California is home to some of the coldest temperatures in the nation. One of the coldest places on average is in Mono County at the ghost town of Bodie State Historic Park.
If there was a map to the middle of nowhere, it would probably lead you to Highway 270 in Mono County. This road is surrounded by everything beautiful, but on this road, this seemingly non-existent road, there's nothing. Nothing except snow.
So it'll take us between an hour to 2 hours to get from where we parked up into the town.
This wasteland of a road is Joseph Jackson's morning commute.
What do we got here?
This was a series of bad decisions.
Okay.
Basically, we had this whole section plowed up until this point.
Joseph is a California State Park Ranger, and his job is to protect a town that no one lives in.
How does one get a job like this? Is this punishment?
No, it's not punishment. I chose it, actually.
This is Bodie State Park, a naturally preserved ghost town, and it's the coldest place in California.
The coldest I've seen is -29 degrees Fahrenheit.
Bodie is a National Weather Service monitoring site, and one of Joseph's jobs is to manually record the weather.
This is not the most sophisticated process here.
No, it's not, but it's tried and true. So they've been doing this for a very long time.
There's no digital monitors, no computerized readers, just 2 mercury thermometers.
It should be a gray line. I'm reading 38, 39. You're a little bit closer than I am.
Yeah, I'd say, it's 38 or 39.
One thermometer reads the low temperature and the other records the high. And this is what you do to reset the whole thing.
Full revolutions. Yeah, like that. Go. Perfect, man. You're a pro. You've been doing this for years. All right?
That is honestly as exciting as it gets. And measuring the snowfall is even more primitive.
Okay.
Yesterday we were at 58, so it settled down to that 57 to 56.
Gotcha. Once again, not too complex.
No.
Simple seems to work here. During the winter months this year, the average temperature is -7 degrees. That makes this the coldest place in California, and often the coldest place in the nation.
Why would anyone want to live up in this frigid, cold area?
Gold and silver, yeah. So it brought people from all over.
From 1887 to 1882, Bodie was in its prime as a bustling gold town.
Because there were over 200 restaurants here in town. So you could have gotten anything from oyster on the half shell all the way up to your basic Subway sandwich.
And don't forget the 64 saloons and brothels, like this one, with a pool table and several romantic rooms. It's estimated that 8,000 to 10,000 people lived in Bodie. That is, until 2 devastating fires hit the town.
So the 1892 one wiped out all the brothels, all the saloons, all the really cool stuff you probably want to see. And then the 1932 fire kind of hit haphazardly throughout town.
Only about 10% of the original town remains, and it only remains because of the dry climate here in the Bodie Hills. There's very little wood rot or decay in this area. In fact, preservation is not that big of a problem here. The big problem is theft or vandalism.
I mean, that's one of our huge concerns, which is why we're here 24 hours a day.
California State Parks took ownership of Bodie back in the 1960s, but by the 1980s, theft was becoming a big problem. And that's when one of the park rangers decided to make up sort of a fake curse.
People said that if you removed anything from Bodie, your life would be cursed from that moment on until that artifact returned.
The curse kind of backfired. People started stealing things and then mailing them back just to see if the curse was actually true.
Problem is, we cannot place them back into the park because we can't prove that they came from here.
These days, the park rangers work to educate people on the archaeological importance of the artifacts in Bodie. This town is a piece of California history, and the main reason it's so well preserved here is because it's frozen in time in the middle of nowhere. Bodie State Park is open year-round if you can get here, and if you can, you might just see how beautiful the middle of nowhere can really be. There's only a few places in the state where the ice gets thick enough to go ice fishing, and one of those places is Caples Lake in Alpine County. And as you'll learn, ice fishing takes a lot of patience and a little luck. The mountain community of Kirkwood in Alpine County is best known for its ski resort. Today, we're not hitting the mountain slopes for a day of skiing. We're going fishing on the frozen waters of Caples Lake with experienced angler Doug Busey and his family.
Make sure that you keep this straight and just drill down.
I have never been ice fishing before, so Doug thought it would be a good idea for me to experience drilling a hole in the ice the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more work.
Yeah, that it is.
While I was struggling, Doug made quick work of his hole with a gas-powered ice auger. Oh, I see some water, so that's good, huh? Caples Lake sits at about 7,800 feet in elevation, making it a prime candidate for ice fishing because the cold temperatures up here freeze the surface of the water in thick layers of ice and snow. Ice fishing on Caples Lake, is it pretty good?
You know, it can be good. Sometimes it's not. That's why they call it fishing and not catching.
That's true. Doug is a straight shooter when it comes to talking about fish, and he kind of has to be. For over 30 years now, Doug's been reporting on fish conditions in the Eastern Sierra. You'll find his reports in a number of publications, including the Tahoe Daily Tribune, and for a while, even on cable access TV.
I'm a fishing fool and a fishing reporter.
Once your hole's drilled in the ice, fishing is pretty easy. Put some bait on the hook and drop it down the hole. A comfy chair is also important, because you're gonna do a lot of waiting. What do they do during the winter while they're under there? I mean, is it dark under there right now? I mean...
I've never crawled down in my hole before.
Well, to answer my own question, I dropped a camera down the hole, and as you can see, it's not that exciting, but you do get a look at how thick the ice is at Caples Lake.
Tell somebody to go actually onto the ice unless it's 6-8 inches.
Doug says Caples Lake holds a variety of fish, but we're after trout, more specifically rainbow, brown, and Mackinaw trout. Unfortunately, we were not getting any bites. It's a lot of sitting and waiting and crossing fingers, huh?
It is.
Yeah. If the fish aren't biting in your first hole, you can always drill a second or a third hole. Doug says it's not uncommon to drill upwards of a dozen or more holes. Here, fishy, 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 fishy. Oh my gosh, I can see it.
Oh, baby.
Just when we were about to call it quits, I hooked a monster Mackinaw, aka lake trout.
Oh, I just broke it too.
Yeah. That's a lake trout.
Yeah.
There's an old saying, a bad day of fishing is still better than a good day at work. Well, I personally had a good day of fishing while working.
Hey, John Bartell here. We're continuing our tour of some of my favorite winter travel destinations. Up next, we're gonna strap on some snowshoes because I think it's the best way to explore nature. And one of the best places to go snowshoeing is up at Calavers Big Tree State Park. Imagine hiking under some of the tallest trees in the world. It's truly amazing.
Season after season, year after year, giants in Calavers Big Tree State Park were free to grow and were largely left undisturbed by man. But that all changed in the spring of 1852 when Augustus T. Dowd stumbled on the giants while tracking a wounded grizzly bear.
Came across this tree. It was the first way to persuade people to come up and see it for themselves. They believed it, they saw it, word spread. So this was the tree that got giant sequoias really famous.
Winter, spring, summer, or fall, for more than 170 years, tourists have been traveling to what is now known as Calavers Big Tree State Park to experience the giant sequoias for themselves.
So this is technically the longest running tourist attraction in California.
Really?
Yeah.
Whether you're in snowshoes or hiking boots, the 1.7-mile walking trail doesn't disappoint. And if you're lucky, you might get Lily Orovitz as your guide.
That's a big tree.
It's a very big tree. It is the biggest giant sequoia we have in the North Grove.
This is the Empire tree, and when Lily says it's the biggest, she's not just talking about height, but overall size or girth.
So it is about 30 feet across in the bottom, its diameter. But the real key for bigness for giant sequoias is just how wide it stays. And if you look to the very top of this tree, you can see it stays pretty wide as you go up for quite a ways.
Sequoias are the largest by volume in the world, but not the tallest in the world. That title goes to the sequoia's cousin, the coastal redwood, which lives in a totally different climate.
If you're in the Sierra Nevada mountains, you're looking at giant sequoias. If you're down the coastline-ish, within the coast I should say, you're looking at coast redwoods.
One of the most iconic trees in the park is actually a dead one, known as the Big Stump or Discovery Tree, named after Augustus Dowd, the man who found it while hunting a bear.
So it took men 22 days to drill holes through the bottom of this tree to cut it down, and you can see those holes right there.
The technology back then, you couldn't cut down a tree with a saw. So what they had were pump augers and those drilled holes. And so you can see those lines are all the holes they drilled into the tree.
The stump eventually became a tourist attraction itself.
It was a dance floor, yeah. You can find old pictures. There was a gazebo on top of it.
Sequoias can live upwards of 3,000 years, and a mature sequoia's roots can occupy over an acre of earth. And what's interesting about their roots is that they don't go deep like other trees. They only go down about 12 feet, and many of the roots are often visible on the surface.
All right, so the tree behind me here fell in 1965. Trees of this size are estimated to be about 2,600 tons. That's about the same weight as 18 blue whales.
Social media wasn't around in the 1800s, but if it was, the father of the forest tree would definitely have been a picture for the gram. This hollowed out tree provides a pretty awesome tunnel that you can walk through.
Now, no matter what time of year, the father of the forest is a crowd favorite, but if you come during winter, there's a special little treat for you. You'll get to see all of these icicles form all the way down the center here. It makes for quite the picture.
You may think rot is what caused the tunnel in this tree to form, but Lily says it's more likely caused by fire.
It varies a lot depending on which specific forest you're looking at, but there could be a fire that goes through a giant sequoia forest every about 7 to 30 years.
Small fires are actually good for giant sequoias. In 2023, CAL FIRE and state parks intentionally set a prescribed fire to burn up debris and reduce fuel on the forest floor. This is relatively safe because giant sequoias have a defense mechanism.
This is a very thick bark here.
Yeah, it's 2 feet thick at its thickest.
2 feet?
Yeah, and it's not thick all the way to the top.
Sometimes fires get past the sequoia's bark and it will burn the middle of the tree, but Lily says sequoias often heal themselves.
100 years, 200 years, 50 years. Eventually it'll completely seal over and there'll just be a little hollow section of the tree that we'll never know about.
Another famous fallen tree is the pioneer's cabin tree. A hole was sawn out in the trunk of the tree in the 1880s, big enough for a car to drive through. But on January 8th, 2017, a windstorm knocked the tree over.
So just by chance, I actually was here January 7th, 2017, the day before the Pioneer's cabin tree fell over. When it did fall over on the 8th, it was a sad day, but this tree is now moved on to the next phase of its life cycle.
Eventually they'll fall over, or they're currently decomposing anyway, and then they'll fall over and put those nutrients back in the soil.
Humans, more specifically non-indigenous humans, are the sequoia's biggest threat. Logging significantly decreased their population in the past, but now climate change and intense superfires are threatening the trees, like the fires that happened at Sequoia National Park in 2021.
They might have died, they might have made it. We could have lost up to 19% of all giant sequoias from those 2 fires. So if that's the case, we're down to about 60,000 or so giant sequoias, which is not, they are an endangered species technically.
Giant sequoias only grow on a small portion of the Sierra Nevada, making them unique to California. It's no wonder visitors are inspired by them, but they also need to be respectful.
That's our whole goal here. We want you to care about them, and then maybe you can care for them, because this is your public lands. We're California State Parks. This is you, this is yours.
Well, thanks for watching Bartell's Backroads and checking out some of my favorite winter destinations. I hope it's inspired you to hit the road and check out a few yourself. I'm John Bartell. Hope to see you on the Backroads. Ready or not, here we go. Oh, hey, Pa! This is the place to do it. Hey, John Bartell here. If you are looking for a big adventure, California's got some of the biggest attractions around. You know, I've spent years traveling the state looking for history, landmarks, and attractions. So I want to take you to some of my favorite larger-than-life areas in the state. We're going to start off on the Mendocino coast with a little trip up California's tallest lighthouse, the Point Arena Lighthouse.
To warn the ships of shallow rocks below, they needed a really tall lighthouse, and that's what you'll find at Point Arena.
It is actually the tallest lighthouse on the West Coast. It's 115 feet from the base to the top of the tower. It's about 155 feet from the mean low tide line.
Mark Hancock is the lighthouse keeper at Point Arena, and he gives tours of the 175-step spiral staircase to the top of the tower. Once at the top, you get a spectacular view of the rugged coast, and if you're lucky,
different every day. Yeah, there we go.
You might just see some migrating whales flashing their fins.
Pretty much all year round we see some sort of whale. The primary is the grays.
Also from the top, you'll see Arena Rock, which is a big reason why the lighthouse was built.
It is the size of a football field and it's only 6 feet deep. And it's been responsible for over 100 shipwrecks since they started keeping track in the 1800s.
Inside the Lighthouse Museum, you can see relics from the past, like the old kerosene-powered lamp.
And it put out 16,000 lumens, and with that light source, it cast a beam that was visible 21.5 miles out to sea.
If you find that you really like the lighthouse keeper's lifestyle, you can rent out and spend the night in the old keeper's quarters. Luckily for visitors, an electric light now replaces the old kerosene lamp, which had to be filled at the top of the tower.
And about every 4 hours, they would have to carry a 5-gallon bucket of kerosene with them too, to keep the reservoir full, to keep the light going.
In California's eastern Sierra, the Owens Valley is known for its vast open skies, making it the perfect home for one of the world's largest university-run radio observatories. Around here, locals call it Big Ears. I know what you're probably thinking. This looks like a secret government communication base, and you might think that these satellites are spying on someone or maybe even talking to aliens. Well, I hate to burst your bubble, but...
we are not looking for aliens, as far as I know. If they come knocking on the front door, we're not gonna say no. So.
Welcome to the Owens Valley Radio Observatory, located just outside of Bishop, California, in the little town of Big Pine.
In Bishop, it's just referred to as the ears, the big ears.
Locals call it big ears because they think researchers like Travis Powell are listening for something. But once again, I'm gonna have to disappoint.
No, we're not listening. We never put on headphones and actually listen to what the telescope picks up.
So what exactly are these giant dishes doing?
Our main project going on right now is COMAP, which stands for the Carbon Monoxide Mapping Array Pathfinder.
That's a big word
Big
there.
word, yeah.
CO mapping is actually just one of several projects going on here at Big Ears. The Owens Valley Radio Observatory is one of the largest university-operated radio observatories in the world. And the radio telescope that Travis is using is sort of like a carbon monoxide time machine.
By looking at carbon monoxide at different times and places in the universe, we can get an idea of how star formation and galaxy formation occurred at those times.
A lot of what goes on here is highly technical and not very visual. These telescope dishes shoot and record radio waves that are processed through complex computers, then converted into data that only scientists can read.
You're not going to be able to pick this up at Best Buy or anything.
Definitely not, no.
The telescopes were built in the Owens Valley because they have clear skies and it's far from radio electrical interference. Essentially, it's in the middle of nowhere.
This observatory is in a high, dry environment to avoid that atmosphere as much as possible.
The telescopes come in all shapes and sizes and search all sorts of things. This 40-meter dish studies black holes, these medium dishes locate fast radio bursts, and these coat hanger-looking things search for redshifts, whatever that is.
Could we use some of the data gathered here for future, like, space travel, or?
Probably not.
I'm gonna be honest, a lot of what's done here is way over my head. But the good news is, the Radio Observatory is open to the public. And if you take a tour, you can ask as many questions as you want.
So it looks at 2,500 blazars and active galactic nuclei over the course of a week. It looks at that one, a couple thousand of these.
Did you just make that word up there?
No.
You know what they say about big shoes? Big feet, of course. And if you have big shoe repairs, head over to the Big Shoe in Bakersfield. Well, it's not the biggest attraction in Bakersfield, but it's pretty hard to miss. Located at the corner of Chester Avenue and 10th in Bakersfield is the Big Shoe Shoe Repair.
I'm inside of the stinky shoe.
A stinky?
That's what the kids says when they come.
There's all sorts of things you can say about a big shoe, but when you walk into Felipe Torres's shop, you'll be met with a big personality.
Shoe repairman, shoe doctor, whatever they want to call me.
With an interior of just 370 square feet, the Big Shoe is actually not a big shoe shop, according to Felipe, and that leads to some storage issues.
Some may say this is not very organized. What would you say?
Built by Chester Deschwadden in 1947, the Big Shoe was a family business until Chester's son Donald died in 1992. The shoe sat vacant for more than a decade until Felipe, for a lack of better terms, stepped in.
Because I was without a job. And this place was for rent.
Felipe can pretty much fix any shoe he wants, except for one.
When these shoes start falling apart, who's gonna repair it? I wish it could be me because I repair shoes, but the building, not me.
Let's just hope that day never comes. California's redwoods are the tallest trees on Earth. So big that you can actually drive a car through them. And one of the best places to experience this is at the Chandelier DriveThru tree, a must-see stop when traveling through Northern California. Among the redwoods within Mendocino County's Avenue of the Giants, there's a turnoff on Highway 101 near Leggett. That turnoff will lead you to a privately owned and protected grove of trees, and at the center of it all is this, a redwood so big you can drive a car through it.
You're definitely gonna want to pull your mirrors in before going through.
Welcome to Underwood Park, home of the Chandelier tree, one of just 3 living redwood trees that you can drive a car through.
That is a tight squeeze.
You may be asking yourself, how did this giant hole end up in this giant tree? Lucky for us, Pam Linder knows the answer.
The story I was told was a lot of bottles of beer and a few jugs of moonshine, and they got the job done.
I guess labor laws are a little different at Underwood Park. Anyways, Pam says that the drive-thru tree is owned by the Underwood family, who bought the land back in 1922 as a tourist attraction.
In 1922, it had a different drive-through tree on the property called the Coolidge tree. That one had a bad crack in it. They didn't trust it. They took that one down.
Not long after Prohibition ended, the Underwoods grabbed that liquor that Pam was talking about and started tunneling through the Chandelier tree in 1937.
In the 30s, they charged $0.25 for cars to go through.
The price has gone up to $10 since then, and so has the size of cars.
I don't know if you're gonna make it.
Pam says there is one rule when you enter the park: drive through the tree at your own risk. And it's not uncommon for oversized vehicles to overestimate the size of the hole.
The Oscar Mayer Wienerville Mobile came through the park. That was pretty cool.
Didn't go through though.
It did not go through.
They call it the Chandelier tree because someone thought it looked like an upside-down chandelier. From the ground to its top, the tree is 315 feet tall, its trunk is 21 feet in diameter, and it's estimated to be 2,400 years old. And yep, it sees a lot of traffic.
500 plus on our busiest times.
If you don't want to get stuck in tree traffic, pull over and explore the 220-acre park and the ever-growing collection of chainsaw art. Just watch out for Sasquatch. Well, I hope you're not afraid of heights, because we're headed to the highest state park in California, and the only way to get there is to catch a ride on the Palm Springs Tramway, the largest rotating tram in the world. When the desert heat gets too hot in Palm Springs, it's not uncommon for people to take refuge on top of Mount San Jacinto State Park, where temperatures are often 30 to 40 degrees cooler. But one of the only ways to get there is to ride the world's largest rotating tram.
You just better hope you're not afraid of heights.
This is the Palm Springs Aerial Tramway, your fast-track ticket to visiting California's highest state park.
And we go through 5 climatic zones all the way up to Alpine, where the mountain station is at 8,516 feet.
The 12-minute tram ride takes you up Chino Canyon, where you'll glide by rocky cliffs and fast-moving water. Thanks to the rotating floor, passengers get a 360-degree view of the mountains and the Coachella Valley. The view is spectacular, but tram spokesperson Greg Purdy says it's also an engineering marvel that dates back to the Depression era.
Dubbed Crocker's Folly, because there's a lot of folks that didn't think it would happen.
Francis Crocker was an electrical engineer, and on a hot, sweaty day back in 1935, he got the idea to build a tram on the snowy peak of Mount San Jacinto. His dream would take him decades, not only to convince the state, but to overcome war rations and various political roadblocks. But finally, in 1960, the project took off, literally.
It was all built with helicopters and tens of thousands of trips.
Francis Crocker's tram was nicknamed the eighth wonder of the world. Without roads, the project took more than 23,000 helicopter flights and required workers to sleep on the mountain. But in 1963, the tram opened and not only attracted thousands of riders, but a long list of movies and TV shows.
Filmmakers, TV shows have really liked us through the years, all the way back to Mannix and Mission Impossible, up to Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. The Bachelorette was here a year or so ago.
The tram itself often catches Hollywood's focus, but the true destination for tourists is Mount San Jacinto State Park.
Why would anyone want to make a state park up here? Well, why not?
In all fairness, it does not always snow this bad on the mountain. I just happened to come during a snowstorm.
How far did you say this was? It's about 0.2 miles.
Lucky for me, state park interpreter Nick Ardino was able to show me around.
This is effectively the one and only way down into the state park wilderness.
Although winter really is a great time to visit the mountain, I wanted to show you what it looks like in the summer. The snow that falls here provides water for the forest of Jeffrey pine trees and all the animals that live up here.
We're transported into what we call a biological island in the sky.
Snow is a pretty special thing in the Palm Springs area. You have to remember, at the bottom of the tram is a hot, arid desert. Nick says when it does snow, views on the park's live webcam increase dramatically, and everyone is watching this picnic table.
That is a very, very famous picnic table. Don't touch it.
Oh,
don't move it.
Don't touch it.
Don't even think about it.
Turns out the picnic table is sort of a snow gauge for people who want to go sledding. Had it not been for Francis Crocker, the hot and sweaty engineer, visitors in this area may not have had the opportunity to cool down or experience a snowstorm in the deserts of Palm Springs.
We kind of have a running joke up here with Mount Jacinto. If you don't like the weather or the views, just wait a couple minutes and they'll change like that.
Hey, John Bartell here. We're checking out some of the biggest attractions in California. You know, one of my most memorable trips took me to the top of California's tallest road. Buckle up for this one, because we're heading to White Mountain Peak in Mono County.
14,200 feet. That's the summit of White Mountain. It's also the end of California's highest drivable road. From the rocky parking lot, you're exactly 253 feet below Mount Whitney, the tallest mountain in California and the lower 48 states. On a clear day, you can see Death Valley to the south and Yosemite National Park to the north. But getting to the end of California's highest road is no easy task.
It's it's so unmaintained and awful and bouncy and ugh.
The nearest paved road is behind a lock gate 7 miles from the summit. The rugged landscape is home to bighorn sheep, and around every steep switchback, there's a chance fallen rocks are in your way.
Your head, you can get head rush.
Yeah?
Oh yeah.
You feel a little loopy here, don't you?
Yeah.
Steve DeVanzo and his dog Sugar are with the University of California White Mountain Research Center, and he's one of the few people actually permitted to drive a vehicle to the summit. And that loopiness that I'm feeling is actually the beginning symptoms of what could turn into altitude sickness.
Yeah, it's just hypoxia. The percentage of oxygen is the same in the air, but there's less atmosphere, so you're actually taking in less oxygen.
Compared to standing at sea level, there is 42% less breathable air on top of White Mountain Peak. Hypoxia affects people in many different ways, and hypoxia is actually one of the main reasons that this road exists.
What were they doing up here?
They were doing human physiology studies on subjects, on human subjects.
Subjects were required to spend 20 days, restricted to the very top of the mountain.
In 1948, White Mountain Peak was a Navy research facility, but then in the 1950s, the University of California took it over and built several high-altitude testing laboratories, including this one, the Summit Hut at the top of White Mountain.
Oh, yeah, the amenities, they're limited here.
Human testing at the White Mountain Research Center has helped scientists get baseline data for all sorts of research. Research used in high-altitude flights and the early space race, but the focus has always been on understanding hypoxia and the severity of altitude sickness.
It happens a lot and people die. It's like your brain swells up in your head or your lungs fill with fluids, and if you can't get them out in a certain amount of time, they're basically dead.
About 1,500 feet below the Summit Hut, modern hypoxia studies regularly take place at the Barcroft station. Scientists from all over the world come here to gather baseline data that can be used in medical treatments for all sorts of illnesses.
So there's certain conditions like COPD and COVID that manifest as hypoxia. So when we do research up here, we can look at a healthy human model and try to figure out the normal way people respond to hypoxia.
Although university researchers are the only ones allowed to drive up California's highest road, it's perfectly fine for anyone to walk the 7 miles to the summit. And for her 69th birthday, Sarah Warmbrot did a little hypoxia research of her own.
It wasn't bad.
Not too bad.
I mean, it really wasn't. You just keep going, take a few breaks for water, and just keep moving.
And mountain biker Casey Shefstein got a different result.
How was your bike ride up here?
It's a lot of walking for a bike ride.
Oh. Hypoxia affects humans in many different ways, and that's why it's so difficult to study. But thanks to this long, bumpy road, scientists have a pathway to new remedies. The Mojave Desert is known for its scorching temperatures, and in the little town of Baker, they believe hot weather calls for a really big thermometer. Standing tall as a local landmark, it's a must-see road trip attraction. Centered between Death Valley and the Mojave National Preserve, Baker, California used to be a railroad station serving mining companies. Today, it's a gas station pit stop for heat-seeking travelers and home to the world's tallest thermometer. World's tallest thermometer. How tall are we talking?
134 feet up.
That's not an arbitrary height. Gabby's the shop liaison and says the 134-foot tall thermometer is a tribute to the hottest temperature recorded in Death Valley, 134 degrees Fahrenheit.
Middle of summer, you can cook an egg out here.
The massive thermometer was the brainchild of Willis and Barbara Herron, local business owners who spent $750,000 to construct this heat reader.
Did Mr. and Mrs. Herron just like temperature changes, or?
I think he just liked the town, and he thought this would be a good spot for it.
Technically, this is the second tallest thermometer. Shortly after the first thermometer was constructed in 1991, high winds blew it over. A newer, stronger, tallest thermometer was built the following year. Since then, it's attracted visitors from all over the world.
As crazy it's going to sound, a lot of people want to experience that heat.
Well, if one tourist attraction wasn't enough, just down the road is Alien Jerky, a massive UFO-shaped souvenir shop loaded with dry meats. The charm of a covered wooden bridge is a rare sight these days, and in the little town of Knight's Ferry, you'll find one. Not just any bridge, though. It's the longest covered bridge in the West, a true hidden gem worth exploring. Spanning 330 feet over the Stanislaus River is the longest covered bridge west of the Mississippi.
John Bartell here, making a little pit stop at the Knight's Ferry covered bridge.
It may not look like much, but the Stanislaus River was once a huge hurdle for early gold miners trying to get from the port of Stockton to the Sierra foothill town of Sonora. But for entrepreneur Dr. William Knight, this very riverbank was a great place to start a trading post, which became known as Knight's Ferry.
When William Knight founded the town, originally there was a ferry that would go across the Stanislaus River.
Park Ranger Frankie Bauer says Dr. Knight made loads of money, and that's because the nearest crossing would cost miners several days' travel just to get over the tough terrain.
It was a good way to make money because people didn't have another choice.
When Dr. Knight founded the town in 1849, business was good. There was even talks about building a bridge, but unfortunately for Dr. Knight, he was murdered that very same year and would never see the bridge. His death, however, didn't stop a man by the name of David Locke from capitalizing on the location.
David Locke came through. He decided that a covered bridge was needed to replace the ferry.
The first bridge built in Knight's Ferry was washed out in a flood. The second, however, is still standing today.
These look like some old timbers here.
Yes, a lot of these beams are actually the original wood.
Right next to the bridge, you can check out the ruins of David Locke's old flour mill, which later became a hydroelectric plant. Or you can hike the many trails, which will lead you to swimming holes, fishing spots, or this Native American acorn grinding rock.
They'd take a grinding stone, they would grind inside the rock to make a meal. That way they could turn it into a flour.
Hey, John Bartell here. We're checking out some of the biggest travel destinations in California. You're gonna wanna put on your swimming suit for this next one because we're heading to McWain in Mariposa County to check out California's largest inflatable water park.
There's an old saying, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. I have learned that I am not tough, and I am not going, at least not very far. If you ever need a reminder on how out of shape you are, come here to Lake McWain in Mariposa County.
We are now North America's largest floating inflatable water park. It's like American Ninja Warrior meets Wipeout.
This is Splash and Dash. It's not a bouncy house or a blow-up pool toy. This is a 125,000 square foot vinyl obstacle course. And unlike American Ninja Warrior, you don't need any special skills to participate, although it would help.
This one kind of gives you obstacle, 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 then a little runway. So it's more challenging this year to keep our guests on their toes.
Kind of like an inflatable Lego set, Mary Gathman Kent and her team add on different obstacles every year. This summer's addition was Big Boy, a 3-story tower with a blob at the bottom. What's a blob, you ask? The mechanics of a blob aren't complicated. If you've ever launched your younger sibling on a half-deflated air mattress, you know how it works. But if you want more specifics, ask blob lifeguard Caleb Borba.
On the first jump, we put a little bit too much air in it, so I didn't get too high. But when we finally perfected it, I probably got like 10, 15 feet up, just boom, smack.
It's new additions to the park that keep visitors coming back. Visitors like pop singer Pink.
She posted it on her Instagram, and I have been slammed with messages and inquiries and reporters ever since because it's, you know, she was a great person.
Whether you're a toddler full of energy or an out-of-shape grown-up, the bouncy obstacle course is bound to put a smile on your face.
It's a little chilly.
That is, until you fall in the water.
It is a freshwater lake, so it is cold, fed by the snowpack up at Yosemite.
Well, nobody asked the Meisner family to build the world's tallest sewing needle, but they did it anyways. This quirky Sacramento roadside attraction really sticks out for everyone driving by. The internet calls this the world's largest or longest sewing needle, but this is the reaction I got from Jim Meisner, the owner of the needle.
Okay.
Okay, did you even know that?
I didn't know that, but I'd go along with that.
The giant needle has kind of a funny story.
My father moved us here from Los Angeles in 1958.
When Meisner Sewing first started in Sacramento, Jim's dad, Bill, sold industrial sewing machines and parts out of their home. Eventually, the business grew, and when Jim got older, he took over the family business and expanded.
And we moved to this location in 1982, and it's a 20,000 square foot building.
The sign from the previous business was on top of the metal sign pole.
And it said, add art, and it had light bulbs around the sign, and the light bulbs would blink.
The city of Sacramento told Jim that he had to replace the entire pole if he wanted a new sign. That was gonna be a little expensive. Luckily though, one of Jim's friends had an idea.
Over about half a glass of wine later, he goes, too bad you couldn't just turn that into a sewing needle. And I said, you know what, that's a great idea.
Jim had to do a lot of petitioning with the city, but eventually he got approval, and down came the old sign, and up went the needle point and thread. Since Jim didn't know how tall the needle was, we used our drone's altimeter to measure it. Rachel, how tall is it?
It is 82 feet.
Jim says whether it's the tallest in the world or not, the Meisner sewing needle still has a lot of meaning.
I think it just signifies our longevity. You know, we've been in Sacramento since 1958. We've been in this location since 1982. And there are really no sewing machine companies that have had that kind of longevity here in Sacramento.
Well, thanks for watching Bartell's Backroads and following me along as we check out some of California's biggest travel destinations. I hope it's inspired you to take a trip of your own. I'm John Bartell. Hope to see you on the Backroads. Ready or not, here we go. Oh, hey, Paul! This is the place to do it. Hey, John Bartell here. You know, California has 9 national parks. That's more national parks than any other state in the country. You know what? I've been lucky enough to visit all of them.
From the scorching deserts of Death Valley to the misty forests of the Redwoods, each park has a very different natural wonder. Now, seeing all of them in one road trip is pretty difficult, but if you're up for it, I've got the perfect route to get you started. Let's kick things off in the northernmost park, Redwood National Park in Humboldt County. Buckle up, because this one's a fun one. California's Humboldt County coast. There's a reason they call it the Avenue of the Giants. The tallest living organisms in the world grow here.
It's a very special thing looking at an ancient sequoia to be able to interpret it and ponder its wisdom being thousands and thousands of years old.
The 300-foot tall trees dominate the sky at Redwood National and State Park. But on the forest floor, fern is king.
protected from the sun, tons of moisture, tons of nutrients. People can't walk on them. You could find no better place to be a delicate fern.
Welcome to Fern Canyon, a natural wonder that's found nowhere else in the world.
This is like a moss sponge kind of back here.
You betcha, the entire wall is alive.
Justin Legge is an educational tour guide with Redwood Adventures. And if you can't tell, he's super passionate about the park and Fern Canyon.
Biologically, though, these ferns in the canyon go back hundreds of millions of years.
At least a dozen different fern species cling to the wall of the canyon, feeding off decaying matter from the forest to create a one-of-a-kind vertical wetland.
How did it end up like this?
What happened, geology, the coastal plate of California kind of jutted under and shoved up the ocean plate.
The unique geology not only attracted ferns, but also people. First came gold miners in the late 1800s. Then, in the late 1990s, it attracted Steven Spielberg. You may remember this scene from Jurassic Park 2, The Lost World.
And he ends up falling from the redwood forest down into Fern Canyon. The little dinosaurs start to munch on him and attack him. He jumps over that log where you see the stream coming under, and his blood flows through Home Creek after they munch him down.
Thankfully, you won't find any dinosaurs in Fern Canyon anymore, but it's not uncommon to come across Roosevelt elk or the lonely banana slug enjoying the waters in Home Creek.
Redwood National and State Parks and places like Fern Canyon always force us to remember that us humans are just a part of this universe.
Fern Canyon is a picturesque place. It's also a protected place worth visiting and sharing with others.
Unfortunately, the Instagram pictures just never do justice.
From the rainforests of the Redwoods, head southeast to Lassen Volcanic National Park, home to some of the hottest, most bubbling spots in California. Bump as hell. This geothermal wonder is packed with boiling acid pits and bubbling mud pots. But a fair warning, stay on the trail. One wrong step, and you might find yourself in some serious hot water. Few places in California are as volcanically active as Lassen National Park.
Lassen Peak erupted between 1914 and 1917.
It was in part because of these images that President Roosevelt designated Mount Lassen as a national park, and curious adventurers traveled great distances to see this. It's known as Bump as Hell.
So if folks wanted to jump in here, not only would you get burned by the heat, but you would get burned by the chemicals.
Bump as Hell got its name decades before Mount Lassen's eruption. The acid waters here were made popular by an unfortunate tour guide.
Kendall Van Hook Bumpus was leading folks out here and ended up punching through one of the hydrothermal soils and burned his leg up pretty bad.
You don't have to worry about stepping into a boiling acid pit these days. A newly constructed walking trail and boardwalk allows visitors to get within safe distance of Bump as Hell. But safety is a relative thing. Remember, Mount Lassen is still an active volcano.
We've had surveys, USGS comes out and works with us, but we don't know for how long it'll be safe to stand here. This is a very dynamic area.
To escape the stinky sulfur steam of Bump as Hell, head southeast to the rugged California coast to visit Point Reyes National Park. Here you can climb the iconic Point Reyes Lighthouse and see dramatic cliffs overlooking the Pacific Ocean. On a sunny day, life is good at Point Reyes National Seashore, and all along Sir Francis Drake Boulevard, it's easy to see elk, elephant seals, and seabirds. But life is not always good here, especially along the rocky headlands.
The wind speeds can reach in the hundreds. 133 miles an hour is our highest record. Just 2 weeks ago, we reached 78 miles an hour.
Point Reyes is one of the foggiest and windiest places in the whole state, and to keep ships along the Bay Area from running aground, it's the job of the Point Reyes Lighthouse to warn them, or at least try.
There's over 70 known wrecks in this area.
When the weather is nice like it is today, interpretive park ranger Fiona O'Kelly opens up the lighthouse for tourists to see, but first, they must travel down a gauntlet of stairs. How many steps are we talking?
313 stairs down.
Have you counted them yourself?
I have, many times.
The Point Reyes Lighthouse was built in 1870, and up until 1975, it was manned by a real lighthouse keeper. And yes, they had to travel up and down these steps multiple times a day. I'm really not looking forward to going back up.
Welcome to the historic Point Reyes Lighthouse.
Okay.
So we're going to come on in and check out the clockwork.
Back in 2019, the lighthouse underwent a massive multi-million-dollar renovation, which includes structural work and historical preservation. Today, the first thing you'll notice inside the lighthouse is the large brass gears below the light.
It's basically like a large wind-up grandfather clock. You've got a clockwork mechanism that turns this whole lens on gears, and this giant first-order Fresnel lens sends beams of light out to the horizon 24 miles.
That Fresnel lens that Fiona is talking about is essentially a bunch of magnifying glasses that illuminate the light. And back in 1870, that light was not powered by electricity.
Refined lard lamp. Yes, as in pig.
The pig fat candle was not the only crude lighthouse technology back then. Wait till you hear how the foghorn was powered.
So they had to shovel 150 pounds of coal an hour to make the pressure for the steam whistles to go every 30 seconds as long as it was foggy. So there always had to be someone in there shoveling to keep that pressure up to make the horns go.
In 1939, the pig fat candle was replaced with an electric light bulb, and soon after that, the horns were powered by diesel air compressors. Today, however, this solar-powered blinking light and an electric horn does all the work. The current light, a little less impressive.
A little less impressive, a little less romantic.
Automated or not, lighthouses still play an important part in maritime navigation, and Point Reyes National Seashore plays an important part in protecting and repopulating the wildlife in this area, like the common murres.
The common murres have made an incredible comeback story. They used to be harvested, their eggs used to be harvested for eating. During the gold rush especially, chicken eggs were extremely expensive.
And as you make your way back up the lighthouse steps, you can take a break at one of the whale watching viewpoints that overlook the protected waters.
Will you actually see some whales?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. This is the time of year. We've got the southbound migration of the grays going by in the middle of January, but we still have the mothers and calves going by April into May.
Once you've made your way down the Point Reyes Lighthouse, drive past San Francisco to Pinnacles National Park, one of California's hidden gems. This park is famous for its towering rock formations and massive talus caves, where you'll be exploring some unique underground tunnels. This is Pinnacles National Park, a vast graveyard filled with the remains of ancient volcanoes. The dramatic rock spires that pierce out of the Gabilan Mountains are known as pinnacles, a mix of rock that park ranger Beth Hudick says were victims of the elements.
The rocks look the way they do, not because they're volcanic, but because after the volcanic layers were laid down, they were eroded away.
The pinnacles became a national monument in 1908, then later a national park, which helped protect a number of endangered species, including the California condor.
We came very, very close to losing them forever. In the 1980s, 1982, there were only 22 birds left in the entire world in the wild population.
Intense recovery efforts and captive breeding have slowly brought back the population.
They're one of the largest land birds in North America, so they have a wingspan of 9.5 feet. Absolutely incredible to see close up.
Today, Pinnacles National Park protects over 26,000 acres. It's an ever-changing landscape that won't be around forever.
This erosion is still going on, and so it's going to eventually erode away all those pinnacles. So the fact that we happen to be here at the same time that the pinnacles are here is pretty awesome.
Hey, John Bartell here. We've reached the midpoint in our journey of visiting all 9 national parks in California. Now, we're going to head east of Pinnacles National Park, all the way over to see the breathtaking views at Yosemite National Park.
This is what the entrance to Yosemite National Park looks like today. Multiple lane toll booths allowing hundreds of cars to move through daily, but that wasn't always the case.
Cars actually fit through this thing?
Cars, initially it was horse carriages, but yes, cars, there's plenty of pictures of cars going through here.
Park interpreter Andrew Corville says before it was a national park, there were multiple private toll roads into Yosemite. To attract tourists to their toll road, private landowners like the ones at Big Oak Flat cut picture-worthy tunnels through this dead sequoia.
You can see the holes up at the top where their pipe augers were drilled in. and that allowed them to open up to get saws in to tunnel out this tree.
The tunnel tree is located in the Tuolumne Grove, which is one of just 75 groves of sequoia trees in California. Its cousin, the redwood tree, is the tallest in the world, but the sequoias are the largest trees in the world by mass. Large enough for, well, a car to drive through.
Has anyone ever gotten stuck in here?
Yes, I actually read a story about an RV that was going through here that got stuck.
Tunnel trees became very popular. Tuolumne Grove's tunnel tree was cut through a dead sequoia in 1878, earning it the nickname Dead Giant Tunnel Tree. But other entrances into Yosemite National Park started cutting into live trees.
Is boring holes in redwood trees, is that good for the tree?
It is not good for, as you would imagine, not particularly good for trees.
The only living tunnel tree in the park is at the Mariposa Grove, and it's still standing today, but the tunnel tree at the Wawona entrance, it fell down in 1968 due to a weak structure and a heavy windstorm. The park eventually acquired all private entrances, but unfortunately in 1993 stopped allowing cars to drive through the tunnel trees.
Well, in 1993, the road was in disrepair. There were a lot of downed trees and hazard trees, and so they closed the road and never reopened it.
The good news is you can still walk through the tunnel trees. Just a warning though, the trail's about 2 miles up and down a steep hill. Well, if you thought Yosemite had some big trees, wait till you step into Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Parks, home to some of the largest trees on Earth. These giant sequoias are so massive, they have tunnels carved through them. And as a special treat, we're heading underground. Drive east of Visalia into the mountains of Tulare County, and everything starts to get really big. For example, this is Mount Whitney, the tallest peak in California. And this is Morrow Rock, a land-consuming granite dome. And this is the Giant Forest, home to 5 of the world's largest trees. To give you guys a little perspective, these tree trunks get up to about 40 feet wide, and the tree gets about 300 feet tall. That's big, if you can't tell. This is Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park. It's so big and so rugged that you can't even drive most of it. 95% of the park is designated wilderness, and giant trees dominate the landscape. The trees here are so big that sometimes it's easier to drive through them than around them.
We're looking at thousands of years old when we look at these trees right here.
These are sequoia trees, not to be confused with the California redwood.
So behind us we have the sequoias. Sequoias grow in the Sierra Nevada mountains, so we're far from the coast. Redwoods grow on the coast.
Rebecca Jones is a naturalist with Sequoia Parks Conservancy, and it's her job to point out the small and hidden wonders in this giant park.
So there's a sequoia seed.
Whoa, that's it. That's gonna... Look at what you could grow up and you could be this. When you get older, you could be this.
Sequoia National Park is full of hidden gems, literally.
Do you want to open the gate? What? Look at that. Yeah.
Below the giant sequoias and the towering mountains is something else that's really big.
Most of the mountains are granite, but what we're standing inside of right now is a giant boulder of marble. Marble.
This is Crystal Cave, a 1.4 million year old cave that's getting bigger.
What I have down here is the river that's actually carving out Crystal Cave. So you can see that trench that it's made and that marble rock that's polished underneath it. And that's carving out our cave about 1 inch every 500 years.
Crystal Cave is 3.4 miles long, and it's filled with fragile stalactites and stalagmites. The minerals that make up the cave features are not rare, but that's a good thing for both the cave and the giant sequoias above.
Not all these areas were protected, and if we had found something that had a lot of gold or silver in it, it would have been much harder to protect this place and make it a national park.
Everything in Sequoia National Park is big, and as long as humans continue to make small impacts, this place will only get bigger. Buckle up, because we're heading over the Sierra to the deserts of Death Valley National Park, where you'll be surprised to see the aquatic life that lives in California's hottest desert. These are pupfish, Death Valley's largest aquatic vertebrates, and the best place to see them is right here in the balmy waters of Salt Creek.
They're a little disappointingly small. I was expecting bigger.
Well, you know, for the desert and a stream in the desert, you know, they're huge.
Kevin Wilson is an aquatic ecologist with the National Park Service, a profession you may also not expect to be out here in the desert, but he says he's actually pretty busy.
It's amazing. There's over 800 springs in Death Valley itself.
Measuring in at a whopping 1 to 2 inches, the pupfish is not something you'll see at your local fish market, but what they lack in size, they make up for in hardcore resilience.
These fish can live in extreme environments. They live actually in water that could be saltier than the ocean.
Not impressed? Well, wait till you hear how hot the water gets.
60 degrees up to water that's up to 110.
Pupfish survive in fragile ecosystems, eating small bugs and algae. Despite their miserable living conditions, they're actually happy fish, and scientists name them accordingly.
They observed their behavior and they kind of acted like puppies. So that stuck, they're called pupfish.
All right, we've about wrapped up our journey to see all 9 of California's national parks. Now, we're gonna head east of Death Valley and make our way to the California coast. But first, we're gonna stop off at Joshua Tree National Park to check out the historic Keys Ranch.
This old ranch is a time capsule tucked in the heart of the park. With very few exceptions, the Joshua Tree only lives in the Mojave Desert. The twisted, spiky plant thrives in the hellish temperatures, high elevation, and low precipitation of this area. The prickly oddity is by far the main attraction at Joshua Tree National Park. But there is one area of the park that few people get to see. An area that, well, is not as pristine.
He has kind of what you could call a junk pile, but you know, one man's junk is another man's treasure.
This is the Keys Ranch, homestead of desert entrepreneur and junk collector Bill Keys.
You know, one of the things that brought Bill out here was gold mining.
All over Joshua Tree National Park is granite quartzite monzonite, a geological feature that often contains gold, but the only way to extract it is with this machine, which Bill owned.
This is a single stamp gold mill. This was an apparatus that was used to process ore and extract the gold out of the ore.
Bill was an entrepreneur. He made most of his money processing gold ore for other miners. He also got into the business of scavenging and reselling discarded items.
Bill and his wife are probably a lot like the Joshua Tree. They had to be tough.
I think that's a fair assessment. They were drought tolerant, they were tough.
All right, we've reached the final stop on our journey through all 9 California national parks, and this one requires a boat ride to get there. Just off the dolphin-infested waters of Ventura County, you'll find the beautiful Channel Islands National Park. Watch out for those island foxes. Just 18 miles off the Ventura coast, far from the freeways of Southern California, a pod of dolphins encompass a hidden world. This is Channel Islands National Park, a remote, lonely, and protected marine sanctuary where respectful travelers can explore.
Make sure to drink water. Listen to Mother Catherine.
It would be difficult to visit all 5 islands in one trip, but if you want to experience the largest and most diverse of them all, you may want to take a tour of Santa Cruz Island with 20-year veteran park docent Catherine French.
They are made by volcanic activity, but we have no volcanoes that are going to erupt out here.
A mountainous island formed on top of a massive fault line. Santa Cruz Island was actually never part of mainland California. Its rugged terrain isolated nearly 60 different plants and animals found nowhere else on Earth. And that also includes the sneaky and fearless Santa Cruz Island fox. That fox has absolutely no manners.
People are always amazed how the foxes are so calm around the humans because they were raised around humans. Those humans just happen to be native peoples.
Those native people were the Chumash tribe, and they actually lived on the island for more than 13,000 years. That is, until Spanish explorers exposed them to disease.
There was a big measles outbreak.
Surviving members of the Chumash tribe were relocated to mainland California, and shortly after, ranchers and sheep herders moved on to the island.
The longest ranching period was from 1848 to 1998.
The National Park Service took over Channel Islands and began an extensive rehabilitation and protection effort. Today, the island is showing great signs of recovery. Even the surrounding water was protected, helping spawn a great kelp forest. Well, congratulations, you've seen all of California's national parks. Now, if you don't want the journey to end, I've got a bonus stop for you. Every spring in San Luis Obispo County, the hills at Carrizo Plain National Monument explode with color. As hard as we tried, our cameras could not capture the true beauty of this place. To really experience the sights, the sounds, and the smells of the super bloom at Carrizo Plain National Monument, you have to visit in person. That said, I'm gonna do my best to show you around this remote and not so developed national monument. You're definitely gonna want a high clearance vehicle here. Yikes. Carrizo Plain National Monument is a 200,000 plus acre protected grassland and one of the largest in the state. To the east of its boundary is a sea of Kern County oil fields, and to the west are the crowded coastal towns of San Luis Obispo County. But to the center of the National Monument is a whole lot of nothing.
The monument is mostly dirt roads. There's a little bit of paving as you come in, and then once you get down another mile or so, all the roads are dirt.
Carrizo Plain is the kind of place you go to get away from it all, to smell the flowers. And Jonna Hurl with the Bureau of Land Management can pretty much name them all.
The hillside daisies, which is the tall yellow one, they kind of follow the sun. And then we have the tidy tips, and this is a phacelia.
The reason that these flowers grow so well in this area is because of its remoteness. Long before it was designated a national monument, Carrizo Plain was a sacred place for Native Americans. Images on this outcropping, known as Painted Rock, date back 3,000 to 4,000 years.
Painted Rock is an area that was used by the Chumash and other tribes that use this area, and it has pictographs in the inside.
Painted Rock is off limits most of the week to preserve the pictographs and also to protect the wildlife, like the burrowing owls and the endangered kangaroo rat who dug this hole.
It's a big hole.
Yeah, they're about 100 to 120 grams.
Okay.
Do you think he's sleeping right now, or are we probably waking him up, or?
Yeah, they're sleeping. They're nocturnal, so they come out at nighttime, and yeah, they'll be hopping around up here on the surface.
In the late 1800s, the land here was taken over by dryland farmers who grew crops on the dry soil and used giant harvesters to work the fields. A successful crop was dependent on the rain, and that's tough because there's little to no groundwater under the arid soil.
It was all based on the rainfall. So if you got a good crop, a good rainfall, you get a good crop, and then a lot of times you wouldn't. So it was kind of boom or bust.
The little bit of water that does flow into the monument can be found at Soda Lake, but it's not exactly drinkable.
Tastes a little salty.
There you go.
And under the hot summer sun, it doesn't last long.
The Soda Lake is an internal basin. A lot of the salts and everything leach into this lake. When it evaporates, the water evaporates, it leaves behind this sodium.
As farming became less profitable in the area, much of the land was sold to conservationists and the federal government. President Clinton designated Carrizo Plain as a national monument at the end of his term in 2001. And then, the wildflowers and native plants began taking over again.
Dozens of species, or about, I don't know?
Hundreds.
Hundreds of different species.
Yes.
As the sun rises over the valley floor, flowers follow its rays. First to glitter bright with color are the low-lying flowers. And then as soon as noon hits, the hills and the mountains come alive.
I'll come to work in the morning and I'll not notice the flowers, and then when I turn around and come back on a road, it'll be just vibrant.
Those mountains are what isolate Carrizo Plain. Formed by tremors and quakes, the mountains here are a result of the San Andreas Fault that runs right through the monument.
It moves like 2 inches a year, but we get major earthquake events every 200 to 250 years.
Wildflower season is short, only lasting a few months during the spring. And as I said before, the pictures here don't do this place justice. You really have to experience it for yourself.
Well, thanks for watching Bartell's Backroads and following me along as we check out California's national parks. I hope it's inspired you to check out one for yourself. I'm John Bartell. Hope to see you on the Backroads. Ready or not, here we go. Oh, hey, Pa, this to do it. Hey, John Bartell here. You know, as a professional road tripper, I understand the importance of a good pit stop, and that's why I always plan my trips on stopping at roadside attractions. And with years of driving under my belt, I've put together a pretty good list of them for you. But we're gonna start things off today in the Wonder Valley, at one of my favorite bathroom stops, the Glass Outhouse. Before driving into the vast deserts of Wonder Valley, California, I suggest using a bathroom in either Joshua Tree or 29 Palms. Because if you don't, there's really only one place to go. You're telling me these actually work?
Yes, they have flushing toilets in them. Come here, I'll show you.
Okay, all right. Welcome to the Glass Outhouse art installation. Oh, yeah. An eye-opening lavatory experience for when you really have to go. People just kind of go in here and
Yeah, well, you can see out, but we can't see in.
It's true. The one-way glass does provide you with a certain amount of privacy, but when Laurel Seidel opened up her desert art gallery, the Glass Outhouse wasn't supposed to be the main attraction or the name of the place. It was simply built out of necessity.
I said, well, there's no tall bushes you can go behind out here that you can't see through, okay? We need a restroom. I don't want people trekking through my house.
As you will come to find, Laurel likes to recycle, so instead of getting rid of some old one-way glass, she put it to use, just like everything else on the property. What are these things over here? Are they, did they come from someplace, or?
Well, everything came from someplace.
Admission into the Glass Outhouse is free, and so is Laurel's wit and sass. As for the origin of her things, she says they come from here and there.
Set it up so it's humorous or artistic or, whatever. And
Laurel's a bit of a free spirit. She worked at a number of jobs and traveled all over the nation collecting knickknacks. Eventually, she and her husband bought this place in the desert to store all their things and start a farm.
A rabbit barn. We raised rabbits commercially here.
When Laurel got tired of raising the rabbits, she converted the barn into an art gallery.
It turned out to be one of those, if you build it, they will come type things, because it's a not-for-profit and there's no fees.
Because Laurel doesn't charge any commission fees, she gets art from all over the world, which makes a very diverse art gallery. You'll even find some of Laurel's paintings. What kind of art would you call this? This is a feather art?
I guess. I don't know. Okay. It's just art.
It's a bird on a bird feather.
Yeah.
After looking at some art, you may want to consider getting married. The Glass Outhouse Art Gallery has its own chapel. And you said how many people have been married here so far?
10. Today was the 10th.
The chapel's not big, but it is free and beautifully designed by her husband. But just to be clear, she says it wasn't the husband she originally moved here with.
Actually 4.
Okay. All right, okay.
I had to kiss a lot of frogs before I found the right guy.
Sometimes that happens.
It took me 70 years.
You could use a restroom back in Joshua Tree or 29 Palms before venturing into the Wonder Valley, but why? Is this like a metaphor for something, or is it you just...
We gotta go, you gotta go.
Here at the Glass Outhouse, the toilet is clean, the art is interesting, and the company is more than memorable. I don't know if anyone's ever told you this before, but I feel like you've lived a very colorful life here.
Oh, you have no idea.
One road known for its roadside attractions is Route 66. If you're traveling through the Mojave Desert, I suggest stopping off at Elmer's Bottle Tree Ranch. Just off historic Route 66 in San Bernardino County, there's a forest of trees growing in the middle of the desert. Blue ones, green ones, brown ones, and even clear ones. Like leaves on trees, the wind shakes colorful bottles hanging from a metal tree trunk planted on a sandy lot in the town of Oro Grande.
This is kind of just like a bit of color in like the bleak desert here.
That it is.
The bottle trees, as they're known, were built by the late Elmer Long.
It's a pipe load of memories.
A folk artist who passed away in 2019.
He retired from the cement plant, but what did he do? He created art. He truly did.
Brian McKenzie's the current caretaker of the Bottle Tree Ranch, and if you catch him walking through the glassy forest, he might just tell you how it all started.
Where did he get all of these bottles?
Well, I mean, some are donated, a lot of them are found.
Brian says when Elmer was a kid, for fun, he and his father would hike the desert and collect old glass bottles.
Do you have any idea of how many bottles are out here?
He didn't count, so neither did I.
With bottles piling up, Elmer decided to display them, so in the early 2000s, he got some old metal pipe and welded tree limbs for the bottles to sit on.
There's a whole lot more in here than just bottles.
Route 66 is known for its odd roadside attractions, and Brian says it's not uncommon for the Bottle Tree Ranch to see 500 people a day, and the forest is always growing.
There's 200 plus trees. I've added probably about 15 myself.
Elmer loved to inspire his visitors. Donations are accepted, but here there's no entry fee.
What do you think Elmer hoped people walked away with?
A smile.
A man's home is his castle, and if you're driving down the 210 in LA County, take the Glendora exit and tour Rubel's Castle, where one man's trash is another man's home. Mansions and even villas are pretty common in Los Angeles County, but towering above the suburban homes in Glendora is a castle, but not just any castle.
There looks like there's a lot of, I don't know what was this junk or what do you?
Yeah, scrap. See, there's a Volkswagen motor in there and a toaster.
Oh.
And
The cobblestone scrap heap fortress is known as Rubel Castle, the dream home of Michael Rubel.
he was a builder since he was a little kid. His father died when he was 6, and he just started building fortresses and digging tunnels.
The multi-story junkyard tree fort in this picture was just one of many janky structures that 10-year-old Michael built in his youth. Scott Rubel, who's Michael's nephew, says his uncle was a half-feral child who grew up working on a citrus orchard.
So Michael wanted to live in the packing house. 10 years later, his dream came true.
When he turned 19, his mother, Dorothy Duell Rubel, bought the packing house and the land around it, partly to keep Michael out of trouble and partly for entertainment value.
His mother was really into partying.
Michael's mom was an actor on Broadway and was well known in the entertainment biz. She constantly hosted movie stars and entertainers in the packing house, which became known as the Tin Palace.
Jack Benny was one of them. Alfred Hitchcock, President Eisenhower was here in 1963.
Here's a funny story about President Eisenhower trying to use the packing house elevator.
Michael pushed the down button and down he went, and then the fuse blew. And Eisenhower got stuck with his head sticking out of the floor.
Over the years, Michael tried his luck in many failed entrepreneurial ventures, including growing eggplants and raising frogs in the old concrete irrigation reservoir on the property.
Michael pulled the plug here, and there was a big spout of water came about a mile down the road, and frogs were falling out of the sky.
When Michael pulled the plug on the reservoir and it fully emptied, he decided to start on his lifelong dream of building a castle and clock tower.
There was a lot of building going on here and no one knew
Oh
it.
yeah, we built for years before the neighbors could see what we were doing.
Working from the bottom of the empty 12-foot reservoir, Michael enlisted the help of artists and his nephew Scott to erect the metal frame which would become the clock tower.
And we put electric winches up in the palm trees and lifted the whole thing up. So it just appeared suddenly. The neighbors didn't know what was going on in here.
Michael had no money, but he had a knack for getting free materials and inspiring young artists to work for him in return for space of their own.
So this was a shared space. So
Yeah, there's a lot of art always going on in here. So people had their own motivations for building their own little spaces.
Rock by rock and junk pile by junk pile, Michael and his friends eventually finished the clock tower and the castle in 1986, all without a single building permit from the city.
We had our contentious moments.
Despite some pushback from the city, the mayor eventually issued Michael a proclamation of good community standing, ending years of conflict and endorsing the castle as a local monument.
They fought us because they sort of had to, but on an individual level, they loved us.
Michael Rubel died in 2007. Today, his legacy lives on through the eyes of tourists that get to explore the castle and its many quirks.
You can see all the hard work here, but what you can't see is all the parties, you know, and that's what really built this place, is hundreds of friends.
No, that's not a rumble strip you're hearing. That's classical music. Maybe you recognize the tune?
It's the theme song to The Long Ranger.
It is the Lone Ranger song, but to be more specific, it's the William Tell Overture by Italian composer Rossini. The real question, though, why are those notes imprinted in asphalt?
It was a commercial that wanted to be done by Honda.
The commercial/publicity stunt advertised the Honda Civic. Just one note, though, the road you see in that commercial is not the same road people drive on today.
It was a big hit by all except for the residents. They could hear it at night.
The noise complaints were so bad that the city spent $35,000 to remove and relocate the musical road right next to the airport.
If you go 100 miles an hour, it's not going to play the song for you. It has to be 55 miles an hour.
All right, 55 miles an hour on the dot. Here we go. Well, wasn't horrible.
I guess that's just another reason to drive the speed limit. If you've ever wondered where the center of the world is located, you'll find it along Interstate 8 at the border of California and Arizona in the tiny town of Felicity. This is the center of the world in Felicity, California, at the corner of Imperial County.
Welcome to Felicity.
Thank you.
And this is the mayor.
What year did you start Felicity?
When I sold my company, I had a few dollars. We moved to the bare desert here.
It's really hard to explain why the center of the world is located in the Algodones Desert, but the short story is this.
I thought it would be nice to buy a township of pure desert and do something with it in my old age.
Born in France, Jacques and his family fled to America after Nazis made advances in World War II. At age 14, he hitchhiked across the United States and eventually joined the Marine Corps. His resume includes everything from banking to real estate and even competitive parachuting. The guy circumnavigated the globe in his own plane, and in the mid-1980s, he gave up everything to build a town on 2,800 acres of Imperial County desert. Felicity, who's it named after?
It's named for my wife. I figured that naming a town for her was cheaper than buying her a fur coat.
The money he saved from the fur coat went directly to decades of property development, starting off with this pyramid-shaped monument, to which he convinced the Imperial County supervisors to pass a law proclaiming that this spot was the center of the world.
Property laws define the boundaries of countries and are recognized by the United Nations. And 4 years later, we received international recognition.
It's a little unclear whether Jacques' legal explanation will hold up in court. Either way, it didn't stop him from building this, the History in Granite. Who is the History in Granite for?
It's for, hopefully, humans of the future.
Day in and day out, since about 2002, etchers like Shelley Evans continue to scribe small summaries of world history on about 416 different granite slabs.
I may not retain the information, but it's nice to learn a little bit while I'm working.
Jacques researches and writes the historical summaries himself, and they document everything from Greek philosophy to animal evolution. And because the history is literally written in stone, Jacques believes they could last over 4,000 years.
Think how happy future archaeologists will be.
Hey, John Bartell here. We're checking out some of my favorite roadside attractions. You know, road tripping can be a little confusing at times, with all the directions and distances, but I've never been more confused than the time I went up Highway 101 in Mendocino County to check out Confusion Hill.
Many things in life are confusing. Algebra's confusing. IKEA furniture's confusing. Heck, the inner workings of a posi-track differential is confusing. But if you're in the Redwood Forest in Piercy, California, there's nothing more confusing than Confusion Hill.
Home of the rare, elusive chippelope. What is a chippelope?
If you're looking for a textbook example of an odd roadside attraction, Confusion Hill is it. Pass through the gift shop and enter the Gravity House, and you'll see what I mean.
Yeah. Oh, Don't fall on me. Don't fall.
Strange forces of gravity present all sorts of anomalies here. Golf balls roll up the hill, people stand crooked, and getting out of your seat is nearly impossible.
Well, you sit in it and you try to get out of it without using your hands.
Owner Carolyn Campbell has been giving tours of this place since 1997, and she still can't explain what's going on here.
I don't know how to explain it. I really don't.
Confusion Hill was discovered by George Hudson in 1949. After World War II, he visited two other gravity-defying places, the Mystery Spot in Santa Cruz and the Oregon Vortex. George became obsessed with these places that defied the laws of nature, and after years of searching, he found this place along Highway 101, where the trees were a little deformed.
Well, I don't know, the tree is twisted, and that I think is from something in the ground here.
Well, there's never been any scientific study on the property, but the visual evidence is pretty puzzling. Depending on where you stand, you might just grow a few inches.
Oh, man, look at me. Now I'm 6 foot. Basketball player.
As for those rare, elusive chipolopes advertised on the sign out front, Carolyn says that it's kind of a confusing story on how the half antelope, half chipmunk animals ended up here.
And all of a sudden it came up this storm, and here was this antelope, and they just became chipolopes.
If you ask me, Carolyn's story is about as believable as her flamingo petting zoo, but in all fairness, she says that her late husband, Doug, used to tell the story much better.
When your husband bought this place, did he just love weird roadside attractions?
Oh, yes. He put so much of himself in here.
Doug passed away in 2018, but when he and Carolyn bought the place in 1997, they worked hard to bring Confusion Hill out of disrepair and saved a lot of the historic attractions, like this 80-year-old wooden shoe house and the world's tallest freestanding redwood chainsaw carving.
It's 40 feet tall.
You don't have to understand everything at Confusion Hill. In fact, that's the point. It's okay to be perplexed and laugh a little.
I don't understand it. It's so confusing.
At the center of San Diego County's Anza Borrego Desert, giant metal beasts stand watch over a roadside art installation known as Galleta Meadows. If you're looking for a landmark in the vastness of the Anza Borrego Desert, you're looking at it. Dragons, scorpions, grasshoppers, and even camels. These giant metal sculptures are all over the place, and around here they go by many names.
Dad put them up, I think he referred to them as sky art. Other people, I've heard them say the beasts of Borrego.
Helena Avery is the president of the Under the Sun Foundation, the organization who now cares for the sculptures. But her late father, Dennis Avery, was the man who commissioned the statues to be built for one simple reason.
To do something interesting.
It was Dennis Avery who had the vision, but it was artist Ricardo Bracetta who built the beasts.
They were put up between 2008 2010, all of them.
In all, there's about 130 metal statues that are scattered all over Mr. Avery's 1,600-acre property, which he calls Galleta Meadows, a place that is now open to the public to drive around and view the sculptures for absolutely free. If you come in March, see the statues through a different lens at the Candlewood Art Festival, a multi-day event where artists integrate their work alongside the metal beasts.
The town really embraced it. Now it's a big part of the identity here.
It's strange, it's weird, it's mysterious. You've probably seen the bumper sticker. The mystery spot is Santa Cruz's strangest tourist trap. Just a warning, there's some really corny jokes at this pit stop. Just 5 miles from the Santa Cruz Wharf, and world-class surfing is one of California's most famous unexplained phenomenons.
Yep, feel the burn, feel the burn.
Daniel Kelly is both tour guide and aspiring comedian at the Mystery Spot.
So how did everyone enjoy that complimentary workout session?
As Daniel says, if you pay for an $8 tour, you only get $8 jokes.
Small warning. You may feel dizziness, nausea, and random fits of laughter. Do not worry, these effects will only last about 2 to 3 weeks.
All right, the Mystery Spot was discovered by George Prather after his cabin slid down a hill in the 1940s. Soon after, he started noticing strange things like round objects rolling uphill.
Come to a stop and stay there, correct? Correct, I'm gonna give it a little push. Whoa, that's that's kind of freaky.
Not impressed? How about you step inside the cabin and stand awkwardly close to Daniel?
Oh, okay. What angle am I standing right now?
About 17.
17 degrees.
George Prather couldn't live in the cabin, so he turned it into a mysterious tourist attraction, and it caught the attention of a Life magazine photographer who took this famous picture.
My favorite part of the picture is the woman, because her name was Eileen.
Okay, Daniel's jokes weren't a part of the tour back then, and neither was an explanation for the odd things that were happening at this mysterious spot.
Strange gravitational anomalies that spit in the face of physics.
There's more $8 jokes where that came from. Experience the mystery spot for yourself and get a free bumper sticker.
Well, you know, in my opinion, the perfect roadside attraction requires 3 things. You gotta have food, you gotta have a bathroom, and you gotta have some eye-catching memorabilia or an experience. And in my opinion, the perfect roadside attraction is in Riverside County at Tio's Tacos.
In the Inland Empire, every day is Taco Tuesday, but there's one taco shop that serves tacos in a sustainable way. If you're a taqueria in the city of Riverside, it can be hard to stand out, and Martin Sanchez knows that.
Because in the world, it's got a lot of restaurants with good food, but I want to make it something different.
And what better way to stand out than with a giant sculpture made out of garbage?
I use everything recycled to the restaurant. We don't throw away nothing for 25 years.
Running a restaurant creates a lot of waste, but instead of throwing it out, Martin got creative.
You fill it with...
Yeah, I fill it. I make it a chicken wire, the piece, and I fill it to the can, to the anything.
Martin says you can make anything out of trash if you put your mind to it. Tin cans can be mariachi players, old bottles can be bricks, and his daughter's old toys can be, well, this thing.
Are these Barbie dolls?
These Barbie dolls is using my daughter's and is played to these Barbies.
Martin has no formal artistic training, and he doesn't call himself an artist. Instead, he's more of a dreamer.
Yes, this is American dreams, and this is my dream come true.
Martin grew up in Michoacan, Mexico, and was forced to work at a young age after his father died.
2 Chinese. This is my first work in Mexico when I have 5 years old.
Martin eventually made it to California by selling fruit and nuts.
When I got opportunity to buy a little cart of tacos, and I started right here in the United States in 1984 in East LA.
In 1990, Martin opened up Tio's Tacos, and little by little, he built the place up by hand with whatever he could find.
The bottles are sort of the bricks? Is that what this is?
No, I don't use a brick, right? And this time I don't have money for the buy bridge, but I use the balance.
Martin's upcycled artwork now spans an entire city block. You'll find beautiful mosaics from broken tiles and odd sculptures that he says were inspired by his memories from Mexico.
Are you done? I mean, is this gonna keep going? Or?
No, I'm not done. When I passed away, I am done.
Martin admits in the beginning the city didn't see his artistic vision, but now Tio's Tacos is a cherished landmark that Riverside is proud of. If you're driving through Humboldt County's Bigfoot country, you'll want to stop off in Garberville. The legend of Bigfoot is a tourist trap with one of the largest collections of Sasquatch memorabilia you'll find. It's pretty hard to miss this place.
It's just a roadside attraction. Sneaks up on you on every corner.
General Manager Mike White says, at first glance, Legend of Bigfoot is pretty much what you think it is. A store that sells Bigfoot stuff.
How many Bigfoot statues do you suppose you sell in a year?
These ones here, probably close to 600, 700. Yeah.
There's no doubt you'll find Bigfoot here, but Mike says you'll also find some of his other friends, like Shrek the Ogre, or this giant dinosaur, and a big fat photogenic bear.
You just kind of sit here, it's for pictures.
Pictures opportunities, a lot of people take pictures up here.
Huh.
Eye-catching chainsaw sculptures can be found all over the property, including this tree house.
Is this where Bigfoot sleeps?
He sleeps when it rains, yeah, this is his house.
Speaking of rain, it's always raining at the Redwood Fountain. Mike says this old moss-covered stump was pulled out of the river 45 years ago and preserved by the misting showers of the fountain.
Those look like shower heads.
They are. Ingenuity.
The property's just a few acres, but it's truly a magnet for mythical creatures of all kinds.
This is like Gnome, the Gnome Grotto, the Gnome Hill or something.
Yep, this is where they migrate during the day. They stay up here and they come out at night.
Driving through the Redwood Forest is like driving through a sea of green, so adding a little color and imagination to that drive was a big part of the business plan when the Carlson family opened up the store back in 1978.
You gotta be a little quirky to open a Bigfoot store.
Oh yeah, definitely. And to work here, so.
The Carlson family still owns the store, but moved away a few years ago. That's why they left Mike in charge to take care of the customers, and of course Bigfoot, if he ever shows up.
So, have you seen Bigfoot?
No.
No.
Can't say I have.
All right.
On the bright side, Mike has heard his fair share of Bigfoot stories, and he'd love to hear yours as well.
Well, thanks for watching Bartell's Backroads and checking out some of my favorite roadside attractions with me. I hope it inspires you to pull off the road and check out a few yourself. I'm John Bartell. Hope to see you on the Backroads. Ready or not, here we go. Oh, hey, Pa! This is the place to do it. Well, from the deserts of San Diego all the way up to the snow caps of the Sierra, animals across California live in some pretty extreme conditions. John Bartell here. You know, on my travels, I've encountered many animals on the back roads. Some of them may even surprise you. So I want you to follow me along as I introduce you to some of my favorite animal-related travel destinations. We're going to start off in Santa Rosa at Safari West.
Hiding within Sonoma County's wine country, beasts foreign to California roam the tree-covered hillsides looking for their next meal.
There you go. It's like a long finger.
Yeah, you are. It's
drool
very slobbery.
Yes. Yeah, she's a little drooly,
yeah.
This one.
Oh, that's on my hands now.
These very saliva-filled giraffes are just some of the star attractions at Safari West in Santa Rosa.
Yeah, that got in my mouth a little bit.
The 400-acre African theme preserve offers an up-close animal experience, and it's tour guide Jeff De Silva's job to get you close and teach you a thing or two.
Is it normal for them to have so much slobber like this? Or?
It's fairly normal, yeah, especially for our herd.
Yeah, they don't put that in the brochure though.
The well-hydrated, spit-filled giraffes are among the many animals you'll experience while riding on the park's 2-story safari trucks.
How many animals do you have on the facility?
In total, anywhere from 900 to 1,000.
Wow.
Individual animals here on property with about 100 different species.
Jeff says Safari West started out as a breeding preserve for threatened and endangered animals. The goal is to help zoos and nature preserves protect and repopulate different species. Species like baby Otto, the park's first successful birth of a southern white rhinoceros.
Yeah, so we were a breeding preserve and still are. So we do buy, sell, trade, loan animals to other zoos here in the States. And we're very successful. Again, we're just so excited to have a baby rhino. I feel like we've been trying to breed rhinos since about 2008.
After more than a century of protection and management, white rhinoceroses have moved off the endangered species list.
They are classified as a near threatened species, so there's about 15 to 16,000 left right now, which is awesome.
Just like the giraffes, the rhinoceroses eat well at Safari West. I was lucky enough to experience feeding time, and not so lucky to experience one of Jeff's lessons on rhino digestion.
What are you holding in your hand there?
Well, it's dung, but these animals are not very efficient at digesting their food. Okay. So when you break it apart, it's all just hay.
Okay.
It's all grass, it's all safe to handle. You know, if this was lion, then we probably wouldn't touch it.
It's another thing they don't put on the brochure here is the amount of dung you might hold.
Yes.
Just to be clear, every tour is different at Safari West and may not include a lesson on dung. And because the property is so big, you may not see all the animals.
That's kind of the beauty of the property, is it really feels like a safari. You don't know what you're gonna see, where you're gonna see it, or how good that sighting's gonna be.
One place you are guaranteed to see the animals is in the aviary. And unlike a zoo, you can walk right into the enclosure.
Here you really get very close to these animals.
Very close, yes. You're in and amongst, this is their habitat. It's like the tours that you were on earlier today. You are in their home.
When co-owner Nancy Lang and her husband Peter Lang first started giving tours in 1993, the idea of commingling people in animal habitats didn't really take off at first.
How did your first opening go?
No one came. The first day, no one came.
Nancy says a safari was a new idea in this area, but she and her husband believed that if people could get an up-close experience with the animals, they would feel more connected and want to protect them.
Is conservation, is that a big part of this?
It's a huge part of what we do. The breeding for maintaining endangered species with the right genetics and getting people excited about the conservation projects here in the U.S. and beyond.
When you think of yaks, the Himalayas probably come to mind, but if you take a trip to Sierra County, you'll find a herd right outside the small town of Calpine. These shaggy little high-altitude animals are thriving in an unexpected place.
Take out the papers and the trash.
Don't talk back.
Yakety yak, yakety yak.
This is Sierra Valley Yak Ranch.
Hey, yak!
Home to some of the happiest yaks in California.
Don't talk back.
So it started as a joke that Jenna took a little too far.
Just like everyone else in Sierra County, Jenna and Greg Gatto were cattle ranchers.
Called Jenna up and said, Jenna, what do you think about yaks?
And I said, what's a yak?
But then in 2015, Jenna and Greg decided to diversify the herd.
She got on Wikipedia, and about 2 weeks later, she said, we're going to Idaho, we're getting a yak.
The yak is native to the Himalayas, often found in high altitudes. Turns out that Calpine, California is pretty similar. All right, so the thing you want to really watch out for here, a lot of yak poop. That's you, you're messy. Greg and Jenna's yaks are pampered yaks. One of the perks of living on the farm is regular pedicures.
Let's see if we can trim some of that back heel.
Trim there.
After a little hoof trim, it's time to milk the yak.
We're getting really personal.
Early settlers and railroad workers brought many animals to California, including some unexpected ones. That's the case for catfish near Donner Summit in Nevada County. Catfish are not typically found in the high Sierra, and especially not in elevations above 7,000 feet like the ones in this small pond near Donner Summit. Locals call it the Chinese Catfish Pond, and it's located just up the hill from Donner Ski Ranch next to Lake Angelo. The trail is short, just over a half mile, but it's rocky and steep.
If you need a little break, stop off at the tree swing. Whee!
The location of the Catfish Pond is not a secret, but how the catfish got to the pond is.
So there's a little mystery around this pond. How did these catfish get there?
How did the number one is probably the Chinese.
Historian Greg Zerbel says there's two theories behind the Catfish Pond. The first one involves Chinese laborers who built the Transcontinental Railroad back in the 1860s and 70s.
Where the Chinese spent like 16 months digging the longest and highest tunnel on the Transcontinental Railroad. And we have record that, right, fish were being planted all over the place here.
From here, you get a pretty good idea what some of those Chinese laborers were working on. Over here is China Wall. It's a 75-foot tall retaining wall, and it took 12,000 Chinese laborers to build.
Greg says the Chinese might have planted the fish in the pond for either food or entertainment, but there is another theory.
Right outside the western portal of the longest tunnel on the Transcontinental Railroad had the Summit Hotel there. And we have articles that mentioned that this hotel proprietor was up here planting the fish.
Just for recreation?
I think for food for the restaurant.
Regardless of who put the catfish in the alpine pond, it's pretty amazing that these little guys can survive the freezing temperatures during the winter.
They must have some pretty good blood running through their systems if they can stay defrosted like that.
Well, when one of his reindeer need a break, Santa heads to Kern County to borrow one from Windswept Ranch. This exotic animal ranch has more than just reindeer. It's home to a variety of animals, and it has a lot more to offer. Below Tehachapi Mountain, just outside of the arid and windy town of Mojave, there's a small ranch that Santa Claus visits every year just before Christmas.
There you go.
And when he comes, he always brings a handful of graham crackers to feed his favorite animals.
Santa, what are you doing here today? Are you looking for like a backup? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, we always have backups.
If you thought reindeer only lived in the North Pole, think again. This is Windswept Ranch, one of the only places in California where you can rent a reindeer.
This doesn't seem like reindeer country out here. Am I wrong, or?
Oh, you're absolutely right. 100%, but we've been here 23 years with no issues. They're not like people. They don't whine and complain about air conditioning and heat. I like them a lot.
Diana Freeling is the owner of Windswept Ranch, and when she's not renting her reindeer to Santa Claus, she's taking the animals to Christmas-themed events all over California.
Come on, kids.
How many reindeer do you have here?
I have 12 out of roughly 25 in California. Cornered the market.
Diana may have cornered the reindeer market, but the money these animals bring in goes to a good cause.
And they have supported the ranch and paid for all of the rescues over the years. As many as 50 have been on the ranch at one time, and they have fed them all. And that's the most talkative camels I've ever had.
Mary, don't get pushy.
When Diana retired from the garment industry 30 years ago, she started rescuing all sorts of neglected animals.
A lot of what we've had here, horses and donkeys and stuff, come in because people can't take care of them. All those dogs are all rescues because they're killing so many at the shelters right now.
For years, Diana not only rescued animals, but invited kids to the ranch to learn about them. Even I learned a thing or two on my visit, like why reindeer hooves make a clicking noise.
When they walk, if you listen carefully, you'll hear a little clicking. You know, up on a housetop, click, click, click. It's not their feet, it's a tendon in their ankle that snaps over the bone, and they think that sound is so they can stay together in storms.
Every year, Santa visits Windswept Ranch just in case he needs a backup reindeer for Christmas. But Diana says the only way that Santa could ever use one of her reindeers is if the children believe they can fly.
That is probably the most special moment you'll ever have. When a kid comes up and they're right on the edge of not believing in Santa and they see that reindeer are real, their parents get that innocence for like one more year. And that's just magic to me. It really is magic.
Hey, John Bartell here. We're checking out the diversity of animals across California, and we've come to the romantic side of the story. Every year on the Central Coast, beautiful love songs bellow across the San Simeon coast. Those ballads, well, they're coming from elephant seals.
The view from Hearst Castle is absolutely breathtaking. The San Simeon coastline and rolling hills is one of the most peaceful locations along Highway 1 in the Central Coast. There are, however, some very noisy neighbors. They're very vocal animals.
Exactly. When I come out here, I like to give lots of space for the elephant seals to say what they need to say. They're actually the star of the show anytime you come out to the rookery.
The reason that state park interpreter Robin Chase likes to give these guys some space is because the conversation can get very heated and sometimes violent.
So you just heard a bellowing kind of call from one of our alpha males on the beach. He's surrounded by your cackling females.
These noisy bellows and cackles from the Piedras Blancas elephant seals are at their loudest from December to March, which is birthing and mating season. And alpha elephant seal males get very jealous.
They'll make the vocalization call. That's your first warning. If you do not move out of the way, the chase begins.
When Robin says chase, it's more like a sluggish gallop. The 4,000-pound males are protecting a harem of about 40 females who are nursing their pups in an area called a rookery.
She's gonna nurse around the clock, and the pup's gonna get huge. It's gonna go from about 80 pounds to about 300 pounds in a month. Basically a ball of blubber on the beach.
A rookery is a safe beach that elephant seals return to every year, and the Piedras Blancas rookery is one of just a handful of rookeries left in the world.
People were actually hunting whales and elephant seals for their blubber. They were turning it into oil.
During the early 1800s, an untold amount of elephant seals were killed so their fat could be used as fuel in lamps and candles.
Sadly, the elephant seal population declined to, less than 100 animals.
For many years, elephant seals were thought to be extinct until researchers found a small group of them living off an island in Mexico.
The animals rebounded very well. They're all descendants of less than 100 animals.
The elephant seal is one of California's greatest conservation stories, allowing researchers to learn all sorts of important and odd facts about the species.
What is going on with their nose, their schnoz?
It's like a secondary characteristic, kind of like a man's beard, like a little scruff on your face.
The ostrich is the largest bird on Earth, and it's native to Africa, but a flock of ostriches are laying eggs in Santa Barbara County. Watch your fingers, because we're headed to Ostrich Land.
Oh, well, everybody's heard about the bird.
Welcome to Ostrich Land, USA, Santa Barbara County's premier big bird sanctuary.
The black ones with orange beaks are the males, and then the brown ones with the brown beaks are the females.
Bodie Perry is a self-proclaimed ostrich wrangler. He has a number of jobs here, but his main job is egg collection.
I mean, how big of an egg is this, on the plate? Will this cover the plate?
This will for sure cover the plate. I would say this is equivalent to 18 to 24 chicken eggs.
Just to give you some perspective on the size, here's a human baby holding an ostrich egg.
It's kind of hard to tell which one it is because we have a couple males that do that.
He just does that all day long?
All day, yeah. He loves the truck.
When Cody says the ostrich loves the truck, he really means it.
This is like a male ostrich dance. He's trying to attract the female, and right now he's trying to attract us, so.
I'm not sure what that says about Cody and I, but I can see how the birds get confused. You see, Cody's a nice guy, but he does handle a lot of eggs. Not to mention, Cody helps hatch the birds in an incubator. Often, he's the first person they see.
We have 3 babies out there that are 9 months old. They do not look like babies.
They don't look, okay, so they grow up quick. Not only is Ostrich Land a great place for selfies, it's also a great place to learn a thing or two about big birds. This next animal may not be native to California, but it sure loves the weather. San Diego County is home to a unique dairy farm that gets milk from camels. Nearly 1/5 of the land in San Diego County looks like this. The Anza Borrego Desert. It's hard to imagine anything would want to live here, but this arid land is home to longhorn sheep, deer, and numerous wildflowers. And just over the Laguna Mountains, you'll find another kind of desert-dwelling animal. This is the Oasis Camel Dairy in Ramona, California. What are we looking at here?
We have the one-hump camels right over here. They're the hot desert camels. They do really good in this area. This is pretty much like their natural habitat.
Gil Regler and his wife are the proud owners of 24 dromedary camels. You know, the one-hump kind.
Camels come from Arabia, these camels. There's one-hump camels, they come from the hot desert. Two-hump camels come from the cold desert.
Not only do the one-hump camels like the hot San Diego desert, they're also the ideal breed of camel for milk production.
You're actually milking these camels?
Yes, I am. Right now I'm milking one camel. I milk Knuckles and we make our products.
The camel milk at Oasis Dairy is not for drinking. It's used in lotions and soaps.
The lotion has 10% camel's milk in it. Right now we're milking Knuckles, and then her milk goes into this lotion.
According to Gil, camel's milk has a lot of health properties, and it's actually good for you.
It's really, really good stuff. Turns out camel milk is the closest milk to human mother's milk.
Unfortunately, California regulations don't allow Gil to sell the raw camel's milk. So now, that leaves more milk for the camel babies.
This up here, is that water in there?
The hump is made out of fat.
Oh, it's fat.
It's gristly fat. So camels can go 2 weeks without drinking any water, lose 25% of their body weight.
Education is a big part of Oasis Camel Dairy. Every month, they open up the ranch to visitors. And for obvious reasons, visiting day is the camel's favorite day.
They just love attention. They want to be petted. They seek it out.
Of course, a trip to the Camel Dairy wouldn't be complete without a ride on the camels.
Lean back, lean back.
That was a trip right there.
One hump is better than two when it comes to riding. Why, you ask? Well, they're bred that way.
And how much can this camel carry?
600 pounds.
600 pounds.
10 hours a day.
The camels here don't ever carry that much weight. In fact, they're treated a lot better than they were in their past life.
We take in camels that are sick or not doing good. We have a great veterinary program. If we need to buy them, we buy them.
This place is more of a camel rescue than it is a dairy.
Hey, good girl. Come right here. You're okay.
It may be hard to imagine that anything would want to live in this arid land, but for these camels, this is an oasis.
Well, some animals are better seen at a distance, especially if that animal is the size of a pickup truck. You're going to want to stay behind the fence on this next location as we head to San Francisco's Golden Gate Park to check out the bison.
At first glance, San Francisco's Golden Gate Park looks like any other park. It's got trees, lots of grass, and walking paths. But there's one area of the park that gets a lot of looks.
I see the bisons first time in my life.
Yeah, he said bison. Nick Fedova is like many first-time tourists who are a little surprised and confused when they see giant animals roaming the park.
I suppose it could be. I mean, we see tourists pretty much every day. You know, we meet people from all over the world out here that come just to see the bison.
Amy Phelps is one of the many caretakers at what is known as the bison paddock. And when I visited, it was lunchtime. And on the menu was an appetizer of grain and the main course, Christmas trees.
Bison normally eat Christmas trees?
They can. They eat a variety of wooded plants and mostly grass. They're mainly grazers.
Amy put me to work garnishing the Christmas trees with lettuce and carrots.
Bison food.
All right, girls, let's go.
Although the bison are cared for by the staff at the San Francisco Zoo, they've never really been part of the zoo. The bison paddock is actually a part of a centuries-old conservation project.
Bison in general are absolutely a conservation story. I mean, they were literally hunted almost to extinction.
The American bison, 250 years ago, almost 60 million of them roamed the North American continent.
Hollywood has taught us to call them buffalo, but their true name is the American bison. And during the colonization of the West, pioneers and the U.S. Army slaughtered millions of bison.
In part for hide and meat, and in part as part of the really awful things that were done to Native Americans.
As a part of the American Indian Wars, the U.S. government encouraged people to kill bison to reduce food for the Native Americans. By 1889, the species nearly went extinct, with a population of less than 1,000 bison.
1891, the old park superintendent, McLaren, brought in one male and one female.
In an effort to save the American bison, Park Superintendent John McLaren started a breeding program. Over the years, more than 500 calves were born, and literally, it saved the species from extinction.
They've come a long way, but the only free-roaming bison now exist in conservation areas where they're protected.
Though they're fed by humans, the Golden Gate bison are very much wild, and if you're wondering, yes, they have escaped a few times. One notable escape happened in 1899 and involved a bull bison trampling a park ranger and goring and killing his horse. The other major escape was in 1942 when bison ran through the streets, and the last reported escape was in 1995. But since then, the fencing has been updated.
And there's multiple layers of fencing, so even if a tree fell and took out one layer of fencing, it certainly wouldn't free a bison. They'd have to get past many.
The Pacific Flyway is one of the longest migratory paths in the world, bringing flocks of birds to Glenn County. And when they arrive, the bird is the word at the Sacramento Wildlife Refuge.
Well, everybody's heard about the bird. The bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner. Well, the bird, bird, bird. The bird is a winner.
As the crow flies, the Wildlife Refuge is just 7 miles south of the town of Willows at the Colusa and Glenn County line. Admission is just $6, but it's not the only bill you'll see. Geese, ducks, and the elusive sandhill crane love to show off their honkers. If you ask me, there's lots of foul play around here, and it's not just my bad bird puns.
And it's so amazing because they're all flying synchronized.
Bird watchers Herb and Paul decided to wing it and take the 6-mile auto tour, which migrates through the wetlands in some of the most impeccable breeding habitat. Just a warning, there's a lot of dirty birds out here. I'm talking hooters and peckers, and if you want to get a good picture of them, you've got to have the right size camera lens. If you're still watching, let me give you a bird's eye view through my car. The refuge supports over 250 bird species that migrate year-round, and if you're lucky, you may just catch a peep of some of the raptors. Little word of advice, stay in your car on the auto tour. Want to stretch your legs? The Wildlife Refuge has over 6 miles of interpretive trails, and they're just lovely in the spring. Just make sure you stay on the path. There's a lot of quacks around here. Why'd the chicken cross the road? It's an age-old question, but if you're in Sutter County, that question gets asked a lot. In Yuba City, the chickens rule the road. Yuba City's welcome sign is wrong. The population is growing well over 62,000. Not to mention, the sign only accounts for people.
I don't know if this is the best spot for you. Carl's Jr. has a special on chicken burgers.
Yuba City has what some may call a chicken problem.
Where did the chickens come from?
I have no idea. We've only been here a year.
You don't know where they come from?
Hopefully somebody's yard. Sounds like chicken and dumplings tonight, huh?
Chicken and the dumplings tonight, okay.
The origin of the chickens is not clear, but the birds have left their mark on the doorstep of the county visitor center and made nests along Franklin Road.
Anyway, they cross the road with the lights. You'll see them clear up to.
Wait, they cross the roads with the light?
With the lights.
Now, I didn't see any chickens use the crosswalk, but maybe more of them should.
This one didn't make it across the road. Well, it did, but not very far.
The chickens seem to have been here a while, so I went to get some answers at the Sutter County Museum. Unfortunately, historical record left out the chickens.
A lot of people have heard that they came from a livestock auction yard that was in that neighborhood for a long time.
Back in the 1970s, the livestock yard is where chickens were sold.
Hi, welcome back. Somebody's going to get you.
Today, though, Yuba City gets its chicken from a variety of poultry-themed restaurants.
There's also a lot of chicken restaurants around here. Oh, I know. I don't know. No coincidence?
No, I'm not sure why they're all in Yuba City. That's funny, though.
Instead of trying to solve the chicken mystery, Yuba City embraces the birds. They've even painted chicken murals all over town.
Right, I like them myself. I mean, it's part of nature.
They may be misunderstood, but they're a part of Yuba City.
Well, thanks for watching Bartell's Backroads and tagging along with me as we check out the diverse animals across California. I hope it's inspired you to pull off and check out some animals on your next road trip. And may I suggest stopping here at the Folsom Zoo Sanctuary? We've got quite the selection of animals. I'm John Bartell. Hope to see you on the Backroads. Hey now, that's my line. Ready or not, here we go. Oh, hey, Paul! This is the place to do it.
There's a reason California is called the Golden State. It's because we have a lot of it. John Bartell here. If you've been on the Backroads as long as I have, you're bound to run into a gold mine or two. But did you know California mines a whole lot more than just gold? We're a very mineral-rich state. And I want to take you to some of my favorite mines across California. We're going to start right here at the Gold Bug Mine. In the late 1800s, Placerville, or Old Hangtown as it was known, was littered with gold mine shafts.
Tens of thousands of mines.
Today, though, tour guide Rich Dvorak says there's only one mine safe enough for tourists, and it's located in Goldbug Park.
Placerville is the only municipality in the United States that owns its own gold mine.
Owning a gold mine may sound pretty cool, but...
Is this a profitable gold mine?
It's profitable from the tourist sense, not so much from the gold sense.
For a minimal entry fee, tourists can escape the summer heat or the winter cold and enter the mine where it's a comfortable 52 degrees. Just watch your head.
You definitely gotta duck down here.
The Goldbug mine was dug by two miners named William Craddock and John Dench in 1888.
It goes 362 feet into the mountain, and at the back, it's 110 feet down.
That's a pretty deep gold mine if you ask me, but Rich says you can't judge a mine by its depth.
The fact that it took them 16 years to go 200 feet tells me they weren't finding very much.
After Craddock and Dench, other gold miners tried their luck in the mine, but they ended up empty-handed too. Today, Goldbug Mine offers visitors a look at how gold was processed. This replica stamp mill shows how they smashed gold out of rock ore. Malakoff-Diggins State Historic Park near Nevada City was the site of one of the most destructive mining operations in the state. Now, it's making a former mining area an example of environmental responsibility. If you've ever wondered what the inside of the Sierra foothills look like, it's this. In a way, it's beautiful. A kaleidoscope of sedimentary rocks piled up layer on layer. But this spot, this massive location, has an ugly past.
When they had it at full operation, you're talking about 100,000 tons of material a day that was getting blasted. We're talking about mountainsides just completely blown away.
This is Malakoff-Diggins State Park. It's located in Nevada County's remote town of Bloomsfield, and it's the site of one of the most destructive mining operations in California history.
And what you have here is an area that was carved out by hydraulic mining through the use of large monitors, which are basically these huge water cannons.
Miners use those water cannons to extract gold from the mountains. Park Supervisor Dustin Patterson says it's a process known as hydraulic mining.
You just fire this thing off, and at 16,000 gallons a minute, it's taking that hillside out completely and in no time flat.
Hydraulic mining is extremely destructive, but not only to the environment, but to anything or anyone downstream.
Downriver in the actual valleys, we had farmers that had their fields flooded, we had towns get destroyed.
Hydraulic mining at Malakoff got so bad, it prompted the very first environmental lawsuit in California.
In 1884, the Sawyer decision essentially banned hydraulic mining by banning the discharge of the gravel and sediments into local water courses.
Not long after hydraulic mining was banned, the town of Bloomsfield went bust, and Malakoff-Diggins mine was abandoned.
How long is it gonna take for stuff to grow back here?
That's a great question. As a rule of thumb, topsoil takes years, hundreds of years to accumulate.
More than 130 years later, the rusty metal pipes still litter the 3,200-acre state park. They act as a reminder of how destructive gold fever can be.
This will be fixed over time, but in my lifetime, your lifetime, our kids' lifetime, this scar is going to be here.
Here at Malakoff-Diggins, it's a place to learn about the environmental impacts of man.
What is that loud noise that we're walking up on here?
That is the generator that runs the park right now.
Ironically, a polluting diesel power generator has been powering the park since they took ownership in 1965. But that's about to change. By the end of the year, Malakoff will become the first state park in California to be completely solar powered.
Remembering our legacy of hydraulic mining and the environmental damage, we've gone from it being an environmental disaster to being part of the environmental solution.
Gold fever struck but never really panned out. Now California's last functioning gold stamper is a reminder of a tragedy and a dream that went bust. You'll find this next mine in the small boomtown of Sierraville. It's quiet in Sierra City. The fir trees in this mountain town absorb the sound of the North Yuba River and whatever cars make it up this far on Highway 49. It's peaceful here, but it wasn't always this quiet.
The noise is so loud that you couldn't carry on a conversation, so they all went inside to talk.
Sierra City was a mining town, and if you listen closely, you can still hear the echoes of history's past. You are looking at a California stamp mill.
Well, each one of these weighs 1,000 pounds.
Not to be confused with a postage stamp, this is a rock-smashing gold ore stamp mill.
So the rocks are going under here and
that's correct.
Literally turn into dust.
Literally.
Here at the Kentucky Mine and Museum, you can witness the last remaining operable stamp mill in California.
This is the only one that actually operates.
To clarify here, the word operable is a loose term at the Kentucky Mine.
This is an operable stamp mill, not working right now. It's manpower, not water power.
The stamp mill is almost 100 years old. In its prime, water used to move the 1,000-pound rock crushers.
Belt-driven, water-powered, yes.
Bill Cochran's a docent here, and he says because of the mill's old age, they had to disconnect the water so the mill wouldn't smash itself to pieces.
She doesn't run like she used to then.
Right.
Okay, all right.
The current stamp mill we see today is actually the second stamp mill built at the Kentucky Mine. It was built and completed in 1933 by Emil Loeffler and his son Adolf. That first stamp mill, well, it was torn down because of a lack of gold.
There's no real records of what it produced. There's some argument that it didn't produce any.
Emil Loeffler had what you call gold fever. He worked the mine for 16 years without a profit. Then in 1944, Emil stopped prospecting after his son Adolf died in a mine explosion.
This is the adit to the Kentucky Mine.
A colony of endangered bats now inhabit the mine, and out of respect for Adolf and the bats, no one's allowed inside anymore.
And then they would open this.
The Kentucky Mine looks nearly the same as it did when Emil and Adolf last ran it. Preservation efforts since the 1970s kept the canvas belts and the metal gears in working order. Even some of Emil's old rock dust remains.
There's a number of stamp mills still in existence, but this is the last operable one, still runs.
Now, it may surprise you that the largest mine in California is not a gold mine, but a borax mine. It's a mineral that's used in everything from cell phones to laundry soap. And you can peer down that large mine in the little town of Boron in the Mojave Desert.
Borax sweet. Borax sweet.
Borax, the cleaning agent that our parents and our grandparents grew up with.
20-multine borax is nature's sweetener for laundry.
The old-fashioned powdered soap cleans clothes, cleans hands, and cleans dishes.
Clean cutting board with all the troublemakers washed off.
Borax may be old-fashioned, but it's definitely not outdated. In fact, borax is inside modern items we use every day.
You don't really know this, but in your daily lives you interact with it constantly. It's not only is it in fertilizers for your food, it is in glass for your television, it is in your cell phone here, this glass.
Borax is inside hundreds of products and used by people from all over the world, but there's really only two places in the world that make borax: the country of Turkey and the desert town of Boron in Kern County, California.
Borax is it's like an element on the periodic table, boron, right? And it's combined with other elements to be borax, like you see it here in the pit.
The pit that General Manager Rennie Dillinger is talking about is the U.S. Borax Mine, the largest mining operation in California.
We supply about 30% of the world's demand from this location here.
Without actually visiting the pit, it's pretty hard to fathom how big it is and how much borax is being removed.
That's deep, really deep.
Lucky for you and me, the U.S. Borax has a fantastic visitor center, which gives you an up-close look at the mining process and the equipment.
It's about 25 feet tall, 22 feet wide, and hauls, like I said, 270,000 tons every time that we take it to the surface.
Borax is normally sold in powder form, but to get that powder, massive dump trucks must move borax boulders from the mine to the processing plant so they can be crushed and purified. Rennie says it's not uncommon for these monster trucks to be running 24 hours a day and burning about 1,000 gallons of fuel each shift.
How much to replace one of these tires?
It depends. It kind of changes on you in time, but $20,000 to $60,000.
Before the massive dump trucks and heavy equipment, borax mining was a primitive process that involved mules and wagons.
If you listen real closely, you can hear them over in this area hee-hawing. Hee-haw.
After learning about the modern mining process at U.S. Borax, historian Jerry Gallegos welcomes people to the 20 Mule Team Museum in Boron to learn about the old school way.
It all started in Death Valley where they actually discovered Eulisite borax.
In the early 1880s, borax was mined in Death Valley with a team of 20 mules.
A mule is a donkey and a horse?
Cross.
A cross.
Mules are faster, stronger, and require less drinking water. When fully loaded, the 20 mule team could pull 2 wagons and a water tank, which weighed 36.5 tons.
This sounds like a horrible trip. It's very hot.
Yes. Oh yeah. It could get 130 degrees right now in summertime in Death Valley, if not hotter.
The 20 Mule team hauled borax 165 miles through Death Valley. Their strength and tenacity was highly revered, and their image ultimately became the logo on every box of the 20 Mule team borax soap.
Boratine, borax bleach, the borax hand cleaner. So everybody, that's what we've always been known for.
Increased rules and regulations has turned gold mining into a dying industry in California, but one operation has managed to stay in business. Sierra County is home to the state's oldest gold mine, the Allegheny Mine.
They found gold at Sutter's Mill.
Gold put California on the map. In 1849, thousands of people flocked to the Sierra foothills to mine gold. California is the Golden State, but these days, many commercial mining operations are closing down, except for one company.
It is the oldest American gold mining company.
Welcome to the original 16-to-1 mine, located in the little town of Allegheny in Sierra County. Since 1911, the mine produced over 1 million ounces of gold. That's about 1% of the gold in Fort Knox.
One of the richest concentrations of gold in the world.
Mike Miller is the president of the mine. He says most of California's gold originated from a 200-mile quartz vein that spans from Plumas County to Mariposa County. And the 16-to-1 mine has only explored a few miles of it.
You're telling me $1 billion worth of gold is below us, but you guys are the only ones digging for it?
That's what I'm telling you, John.
To understand why the 16-to-1 mine is one of the only mining companies out here, you have to go inside the mine. It's like a wild roller coaster ride in here. But first, you have to get down to the gold. And when I say down, I mean 1,300 feet down. Definitely a different kind of commute to work than I take. For some strange geological reason, gold particles get trapped in quartz rock formations called veins.
And it's just like an Easter egg hunt.
The Northern California quartz vein is called the lode, and there's 2 ways to get the gold out of it. You can either wait for water to naturally wash it out, or you can dig for it.
All right, so right now we are at the 1,300 level. This is pretty much the center of the quartz vein. And next, we're gonna go to an area where they've pulled out $1 million worth of gold in one shift.
In the early 1990s, miners at the 16-to-1 mine started using metal detectors to locate the gold, and the idea saved the mine from closing.
It's like big boulders to solve the gold. I mean, so that part right there keeps me still doing what I'm doing.
Reed Miller is Mike's son, and today he's working with Dan Gnomes, and the 2 miners are trying to remove 11 feet of rock from an old dig site.
You're working in a very cramped space every day.
Yeah, because you guys think you blasted, so you guys move that rock so you can get back in there and drill another round. So you're constantly, it's like a worm going in a hole and constantly, getting that dirt out. Yeah.
The task seems never-ending, and it is. Only 20% of the rock in the 16-to-1 mine has been explored. In fact, most of the gold veins in the foothills haven't been explored.
Why is no one else mining out here?
There's a reason.
One of the main reasons is California regulation. This is the Surface Mine and Reclamation Act of 1975. It was created to protect the environment, but over the years, Other government agencies have littered the mining industry with so many new rules that miners have a hard time mining.
We all need to be regulated, but we need to be fairly regulated, and it hasn't been fair.
Mike says more than a dozen different agencies monitor mining, but he does believe that there is light at the end of the tunnel for mining.
If you're not an optimist, you better not be a gold miner. And yes, I think it's going to get better.
California gold miners have been through 150 years of struggles. Mike hopes that regulators will take a closer look at those struggles so that California miners can live on. You may remember California's first gold rush, which started in 1849, but did you know California had a second gold rush? It took place in San Diego County in the hills of a town called Julian, which also became known for its motherlode of apples. In the gold-rich hills of Northern California, history often focuses on James Marshall, the man credited with starting the state's first gold rush in 1849.
Take a look at these drilling bars that are on the wall here.
But rarely does history talk about Fred Coleman and California's second gold rush.
As his horse was getting a drink, he saw a glint of metal in the sand and started panning for gold.
Fred Coleman was a former slave turned rancher, and he was also really good at mining, but really bad at keeping a secret.
He was talking about all the piles of it he saw up here and how fast he's going to be a rich guy, and he single-handedly set off the second gold rush to Southern California.
We don't have any pictures of Fred Coleman, but the legacy of his gold discovery lives on right here at the Eagle Mining Company.
So back then they nicknamed this Gold Hill. There's 235 old abandoned mines up here in Julian.
Word got out about Coleman's gold discovery in 1870. That same year, the Eagle Mine started digging. And according to tour guide John Rodove, the Eagle Mine outlasted most of its competition.
The second gold rush was kind of short-lived. It was only a few years, but they did find a lot of gold up here.
The Eagle Mining Company managed to pull out around $400,000 worth of gold, but ultimately it had to close its doors in 1934. Today, though, it's one of Julian's most popular tourist attractions.
The Powder Man was a guy with a fun job here in the High Peak Mine. He got to use explosives to clear the tunnel system out.
Inside the mine, visitors learn about all sorts of mining dangers, and they even get to experience how dark it was for them.
Okay.
A maze of ladders and stairs will eventually take you more than 400 feet below the surface. There's a lot of mining artifacts to look at along the way, but make sure you stay with the group. Have you ever had anyone get lost in this mine here?
Well, not yet.
Outside the mine, try your hand at gold panning for real gold.
Look at that.
If mining doesn't pan out, you can always head down the hill to Julian for a slice of pie.
It's really good. It's the best we've ever found.
When mining went bust, farming took over. Julian's cold weather climate is perfect for growing apples. Fred Coleman may have discovered gold in this area, but the real mother lode in Julian is pie. In October, more than 10,000 pies a week are sold, and tourists wait in long lines just to taste them. Was it worth the wait out here?
Definitely.
Well, there's nowhere to go but down at this next location. At more than a mile deep, the Kennedy Mine in Amador County is one of California's richest and deepest gold strikes. Bring a flashlight, because it's gonna get dark. Highway 49 was named after the gold miners of 1849. The historic route is essentially a tour through gold country, and one of the most profitable and deepest gold mines along Highway 49 is the Kennedy Mine in Amador County. How deep is this mine?
5,912 feet deep.
Tour guide Doug Ketron says the Kennedy Mine was named after prospector Andrew Kennedy, the man who discovered gold in the area, but turns out wasn't much of a digger.
But Kennedy got down to that hard quartz and he couldn't do anything with it. So he sold his interest to a group of businessmen in Jackson.
The arduous task of digging through the hard rock took dozens of men digging straight down, and the only way down was on the head frame elevator, which was essentially a bucket on the end of a cable.
9 guys climbed in the bucket and then they put the wood platforms on top of them, and another 7, 8 guys got on there and they just held on. And
work in the mine was pretty miserable. Shifts were often more than 10 hours a day. It was dark, dangerous, and hot.
It was near 100 degrees and it was almost 100% humidity.
That's like working in an armpit or something like that. The search for gold at the Kennedy Mine ended in 1942 because resources were needed for World War II. But in total, the mine produced more than $34 million worth of gold. Okay, yeah. Today, the mine is protected and open to the public so you can experience how gold was extracted and processed.
California is not known for its coal mining, but there was a small deposit of coal found in the sandy hills of the Bay Area. But as miners dug deeper, they found that that sand was much more valuable than the coal. I learned all about it at the Black Diamond Preserve in Antioch.
The hills of Antioch hold a secret of times past. On the surface, wind whips over the forgotten remains of Somerville and Nortonville. But underground, the lost riches of the old mining towns have been kept alive. This is Kate Collins, and she works at the Black Diamond Mines Regional Preserve, which gets its name from the old coal deposits here. Coal mining in California ended in the 1900s, but in the 1920s, miners started digging for something much more useful.
Yeah, this is the silica sand right around us, and here we can see some of the products that they made with that. Shot glasses, mason jars, salt and pepper shakers.
Sand in the Hazel Atlas mine contains high levels of clean silica, the main ingredient to make glass, and the Hazel Atlas glass factory in Oakland was using a lot of it.
They took about 1.8 million tons.
Underground mining became too expensive in the 1970s, so the mine closed. Today, the Hazel Atlas mine is a tourist attraction managed by the East Bay Park System.
Well, the mine itself has over 8 miles of underground workings.
Luckily, the tour I was taking is only a quarter-mile long, but along the way, you get to see some earth-shaking geology.
So this is the Hazel Atlas Fault.
This crack is the remains of an ancient earthquake smack dab in the middle of the mine.
What do you think the odds are that it can shake right now?
Well, I don't think we're gonna have an earthquake on this fault. We don't think it's active.
Miners may not have had to worry about earthquakes, but they did have to worry about workplace hazards.
What is this giant hole right here?
This is what we call a stope. It's one of the large rooms that was left over after all the blasting and removal of sand.
The men who carved into these hills had rough lives. Many died from lung diseases after breathing in the fine silica particles. Today, though, the sand mines have been made safe, so tourists can experience the hidden history of California's past. In the hills of Grass Valley is one of the deepest and most elaborate gold mines in California. Today, it's a state park, but for over a century, miners were lowered down a small opening that dropped hundreds of feet. Day in and day out since 1850, gold miners were lowered down this small opening at the top of the Empire Mine, and the only way down was on a primitive open-air elevator called a man skip.
It's very dangerous working down there. I guess safety standards were much different back then.
They had 26 fatalities in the life of the mine.
These days, steps and handrails replace the mine's dangerous elevator. Unfortunately, tour guide Blair Brooksby says those steps don't take you into the deep spider web of shafts and tunnels.
It's full of water. There's 367 miles of shafts and drifts down below us, and they're basically all full of water.
Labor laws and low gold prices forced the mine to close in 1956, but before that, the Empire Mine was extremely profitable. More than 5.8 million ounces of gold were extracted, and it was all thanks to giant pumps that removed the water so miners could dig.
They shut the mine down in 1956. It took about 9 months after the pump stopped to fill up the water.
The gold-filled mine shafts may be underwater, but if you walk into the secret room, you can see where that gold is hiding.
They wanted to keep this a secret because if anybody else from other mines saw this, they could see where the really good veins of gold were.
Empire Mine owner William Bourne invested a lot of money to extract gold, and it paid off. He lived a lavish lifestyle directly above the mine, and you can see it for yourself by touring the elegant clubhouse or his grand cottage. California mines all sorts of minerals, and if you want to see them all, the State Mining and Mineral Museum has them on display in Mariposa County. If you're a rock hound, you've just hit the motherlode with this place. Quartzite, calcite, magnetite, and fluorite. Those minerals and more are all nicely on display for your viewing pleasure.
Lots of ites in here.
Yes, most minerals end with an ite.
Museum interpreter Natalie Sandman is no fool when it comes to the more than 1,300 specimens on display.
This pyrite.
Yeah, pyrite.
AKA,
yeah. Fool's gold.
Fool's gold.
Yeah.
Real gold, not fool's gold, as you probably guessed, is California's state mineral, but did you know the state gemstone is benitoite?
It's blue, it has these really cool triangular crystals. It's so rare. The mine that this was found in is in San Benito County, so that's why it's named benitoite.
The state mineral collection started back in 1880. Today, rocks, gemstones, and fossils from all over the world are on display. Locked up in the museum's vault is another prize specimen, the Freecott nugget, a 13.8-pound crystallized gold nugget found in the American River back in 1864.
And it's surviving from the gold rush, which is what makes it quite spectacular.
If you want to see what it's like to be a gold miner, take a tour through the replica gold mine shaft, which eventually leads you to the replica stamp mill. A stamp mill crushes rock ore to help extract gold. The town of Mariposa was actually one of the first places in California to build one.
They weren't creating postage stamps here,
No.
They were stamping rocks.
Stamping rocks.
Big rocks, small rocks, and rocks that glow in the dark. I could go on all day about the cool gems and minerals in this museum, but it's probably best that you check it out yourself.
Well, thanks for watching Bartell's Backroads and checking out some of California's historic mining and mineral locations. I hope it's inspired you to hit the road and check out a few spots yourself. I'm John Bartell. Hope to see you on the Backroads. Ready or not, here we go. Oh, hey, Paul! This is the place to do it. Hey, John Bartell here. If you're looking for an adventure, Northern California is a great place to start. As a travel reporter, I like to take people from the rugged coasts all the way up to the dense forests. One place I like to start is on a little waterfall tour at Yosemite National Park. Take a look.
Naturalist John Muir once said, "The snow is melting into music." And if you visit Yosemite National Park in the spring, that music is all around you.
Ephemeral means temporary, so it comes and goes, but it's usually just a springtime situation.
It would be hard to pick just one waterfall to focus on in the park, so Yosemite Conservation President Frank Dean suggested 5 waterfalls that any visitor could easily see on an ordinary day trip.
A little bit of a hike, but yes, it's a beautiful walk.
The first waterfall that almost every visitor will see is at the end of Wawona Tunnel. This is Bridal Veil Falls, a focal point for every picture, painting, and memory had by just about everyone who's visited the park. It's below the billowing mist that the Conservancy and the National Park are working to make access to Bridal Veil Falls even better. Construction of new utilities, bathrooms, and trails will make it easier for everyone to get an up-close view by the end of this year.
You know, one thing special about Bridal Veil, it kind of makes its own weather. Take a look, as that water comes down, it freezes, makes a nice little icy layer all over the rocks. At 2,425 feet, Yosemite Falls is not only the most iconic falls in the park here, it's also one of the tallest in the world. And it's actually made up of 3 different parts, the upper, the middle, and the lower. And during the winter, it sheds off giant ice particles that eventually flow down its creek and make its way into the Merced River.
Frazzle ice, yeah, really unusual. You can't see it very many places in the world, only places that have really tall waterfalls.
Although it's not required, it is easier to drive than park in front of many of the waterfalls, especially the hard-to-find ones, like Sentinel Falls.
All right, so the unique thing about Sentinel Falls, it's a seasonal waterfall, meaning you can only see it from about March to June. Now, it's located just west of Sentinel Rock, and the water flows down multiple cascades that range from about 50 feet to about 500.
Now in the wintertime, that fall, Sentinel Falls will freeze over, and actually people will ice climb up that waterfall.
Ribbon Falls is another one of the seasonal falls in the park here, and it's pretty easy to spot because right next to it is El Capitan, a popular climbing route.
Seasonal or not, all waterfalls in Yosemite Valley end up here.
So these are the headwaters for the water, like this Merced River, that flows down through the foothills into the Central Valley and eventually to San Francisco Bay.
One of my favorite views here at Yosemite National Park is right here on the Swinging Bridge picnic area. And that's because you get this great view of the Merced River, but right behind you here, you get a nice dead-on view of the upper Yosemite Falls.
Horsetail Falls brings in hundreds of photographers every year to catch a glimpse of what's called Firefall.
Yeah, it's coming!
There's a certain time of the year in February where the sunset is just at the right angle and it illuminates that waterfall and into an orange.
The snowmelt puts on a spectacular show every year in Yosemite, but due to climate change, that show is becoming shorter and shorter. The 2 remaining ancient glaciers inside the park have almost completely melted. So if you want to see and hear the waterfalls, there's no better time than right now. Well, I hope you're not afraid of heights because we're heading sky high. We're climbing to the top of the world's tallest trees to experience an adrenaline-pumping adventure ziplining from treehouse to treehouse at Sonoma Zipline. Just off the Bohemian Highway in Sonoma County, there's a grove of redwood trees that breathe a certain fear into anyone who enters. And if you listen closely, you'll hear screams from the treetops. The fearful screams you hear are those of visitors flying through the trees at Sonoma Zipline Adventures.
That's gonna be great.
The adventure part of Sonoma Zipline Adventures is key to the operation here, and Zipline guides Noah Silverstein and Drew Farley are here to make sure that I complete the full course, which includes 7 zip lines, 2 sky bridges, 6 tree houses, and a spiral staircase that gets you high up into the tree canopy.
How much weight can this thing hold?
A lot.
A lot. That's all I need to know.
More than you or I.
Okay, good.
The Treetop Tour is the fastest and highest course. In all, you'll be ziplining nearly 2/3 of a mile of cable.
You can go as much as 30 to 40 miles per hour depending on your mass.
40 miles?
Yeah.
Oh man, maybe I should have had another breakfast burrito or something. Got the speed up.
The zipline is just one adrenaline fix that thrill seekers come here to experience. Remember that sky bridge I told you about earlier? Well, it too will test your vertigo.
It's a little shaky.
At more than 100 feet up, the bridge gives you a pretty good look at the forest below.
I think I see Sasquatch. Whoa!
For those of you who may be skeptical about the strength of the redwoods and the platforms that hold you up, Drew likes to do a little durability demonstration.
Oh yeah, I imagine people love that when you do that. Yeah.
He also likes to show you how much the trees naturally sway just by pushing them.
You can see just how much you can move.
You're like a He-Man, moving trees.
Everything I've experienced so far is a build-up to this part of the course, which is Northern California's longest zip line, which stands 250 feet off the ground. It takes a full 45 seconds just to get to the other end. And once you get to the end of the platform, you get a good look at the Sonoma Adventure tree houses.
Every tree house has its own name and is kind of decorated and themed to its name.
Dan Ferguson was kind enough to give me a tour inside the tree houses, and to my surprise, they were nothing like the tree forts I built as a kid. They're pretty cozy, with plush beds, large vanities, and even a toilet.
Is this a good way to get over your fear of heights, you think, to sleep in the tree?
It actually could be, because you're very secure. Redwoods sway a little bit, so the treehouse will rock you gently to sleep at night.
Built at a height of 80 to 100 feet, these tree houses will either help you conquer your fear of heights or
push you right
over.
Yeah,
otherwise you're never, I'm never doing that again.
Okay.
To finish off the tour, visitors take a spiral staircase that leads you to yet another shorter zip line where you can take a selfie. And it's at this point that your tour guide will inform you that the only way to get down is to jump the 60 feet to the ground. Lake Tahoe is home to some of the clearest water in the world. And what better way to take it all in than by gliding across it in a clear kayak? Lake Tahoe. It's known as the Jewel of the Sierra, and it's one of the deepest and clearest lakes in California.
I'm noticing we are getting very deep here, and I can see way the heck down there. Oh yeah.
And the best way to experience the clear water is in a clear kayak.
These boats are made out of a polycarbonate plastic, same material that you use on aircraft windows.
Jeff Miller is a kayak guide with Clearly Tahoe, an adventure company focused on teaching their riders about the lake water and why it's so clean.
Lake Tahoe's purity level is 99.994% pure. Now, your still drinking water is actually 99.998% pure, so it's
Hey, club.
Though it's not recommended to drink the lake water, you technically could, and there's plenty of it.
They actually say that this lake does have enough water in it to supply every single person in the United States with 50 gallons of water every day for 5 years.
If you want to see Lake Tahoe at its cleanest, Jeff says you should come in winter or early spring. In fact, researchers from UC Davis announced that the spring of 2023 is the clearest they've seen in over 40 years.
From our last recording from UC Davis, actually, I saw that they got it all the way down to 115 feet.
You could see 100 feet down?
115 feet was the recording that they had.
One of the best places to see the depths of Lake Tahoe is at Bonsai Rock on the east shore. From the surface of the lake, the round granite boulders below create a stunning contrast to the sandy lake bed, which seems to sparkle with every ripple in the water.
What are all these sparkly things? Is this gold below me?
Well, believe it or not, here in Lake Tahoe, we do have the wonderful thing called iron pyrite, also known as fool's gold. So
I'm not gonna get
Unfortunately not today, buddy.
As clear as the water is, you will not be able to see the deepest part of Lake Tahoe, which is more than 1,600 feet below the surface, leaving plenty of space for fish and other aquatic life to hide.
Is there any sort of like creatures that might attack us, eat us?
You got the good old famous Tahoe Tessie, come on.
Tahoe Tessie?
Tahoe Tessie, the Loch Ness Monster of Lake Tahoe.
Never before photographed and rarely seen, Tahoe Tessie has been said to be living in the lake's underwater caves, but these computer-generated photos give us a glimpse of what the monster might look like and might eat.
No recent attacks from Tessie?
Nah. She only likes to eat clear kayakers and paddleboarders, who I was told. No.
Although Tahoe Tessie has not been photographed, other lake monsters have.
On top of that, we also have the zooplankton, which have been making a drastic comeback.
The zooplankton in Lake Tahoe are microscopic animals that feed on fine particles and algae in the water. Jeff says previous years of warm weather and other causes have minimized the population until this year.
They're like the little cleaners of the lake.
Absolutely, yeah, it's a natural cleaner.
It takes more than zooplankton to keep Tahoe's water clean. Over the past few decades, invasive species like zebra mussel and Eurasian milfoil have threatened Tahoe's health and clarity. These invasive species are brought in by boats or other water toys that have been in other infected lakes. Jeff says, now more than ever, it's the job of humans to keep Tahoe clean.
The conservation 100% is clean, draining, dry, and all your personal vessels especially. You don't want to be bringing any of those invasive species into this lake.
Northern California is full of quirky roadside attractions, and one that's sure to catch your eye is right off Highway 1 in the charming community of Sea Ranch. When driving on Highway 1 along the Sonoma County coast, it's pretty hard to take your eyes off the breathtaking natural beauty. But chances are, if you pass through the little community of Sea Ranch, there's a strange-looking structure that'll catch your eye. The unique curves of this abstract structure may look more like something out of a Dr. Seuss book than a chapel, but volunteer caretaker Amy Van Syke says the peculiar building was designed to attract curious travelers.
The more you see, the more you want to know more.
The outside of the chapel is pretty intriguing to visitors.
Come on in.
All right. But inside the chapel, your eyes are sent on a scavenger hunt for fine craftsmanship and artistic detail.
The mosaic on the floor, it's just got these beautiful colors. The plaster itself represents a flower. You have more glass, or else it's a marble.
The man behind the creative design of this chapel was James Hubble, an artist and architecture designer. But the complete building was a result of a collaboration of many artists.
Different people who were doing like the woodwork. Someone was doing the stonework, someone was doing the ceiling, someone was doing the redwood.
The chapel was commissioned and then gifted to the residents of Sea Ranch from Robert and Betty Buffum. They dedicated the building in memory of their friend's son, Navy aviator Kirk Ditzler. He was also an artist, and his sketches inspired the shape of the chapel.
And it was a great loss, so that was the dedication by the Buffums to the Ditzlers.
From the kaleidoscope of stained glass to the custom redwood shingles, the entire chapel was constructed in just 9 months. And when the doors were opened in 1985, everyone was welcome, religious or not.
It's called a spiritual place. So a lot of people come here for reflection, sacred events.
Thanks to the hard work and maintenance by the Sea Ranch Chapel Foundation, curious passerbys can explore this piece of art for free, 365 days a year.
Welcome back to Bartell's Backroads. We're taking a look at some of my favorite places in Northern California. And you can't go to Northern California without visiting the Redwoods. One of the best places to get up close and personal with the giants is over at the Trees of Mystery in Del Norte County.
Along Highway 101, a giant stands tall in a mysterious section of Del Norte County's Redwood Forest. And no, I'm not talking about the trees. This giant is a legend in this area. And if you visit him between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m., the giant might just talk to you.
Oh, hey, Paul.
Hey, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing well.
The friendly giant is Paul Bunyan, and he lives in the Trees of Mystery with his faithful sidekick, Babe the Blue Ox.
Tell me again, why is Babe blue?
Paul found him up in the mountains during a snowstorm, and he had been frozen solid and turned blue.
A giant logger and a blue ox is just the beginning of the mysteriousness of the Trees of Mystery. Walk inside the gates and you'll find a lineup of odd characters.
These are various people that were in the logging camp. Jack the Back, Red Thumb Robbie, who planted so many redwood trees his thumb turned red.
Tall statues and wood carvings are sort of the sideshow here. If you want to see the real mysteries of this place, just follow tour guide and manager Jennifer Gunther.
This is a massive tree in the middle of a bunch of smaller trees here.
Yes, I think that the loggers are probably just intimidated.
The giant and odd-looking trees inside this nature-themed attraction has been luring tourists to the area since 1946.
My grandfather was in the war. When he got back, he didn't want to live in San Francisco anymore. He wanted to get out in nature.
After purchasing the property, which was an old logging site in Klamath, California, Jennifer's grandparents, Ray and Marley Thompson, discovered a strange growing pattern in many of the remaining trees.
So these roots have grown out, and as you can see, it looks like two elephants if you use your imagination.
What started out as a walking tour through the property soon turned into a Redwood-themed amusement park.
Where does this take us here?
To Ted's Ridge.
Instead of looking up at the trees, the Sky Trail offers visitors a unique look down.
Hills up here are very different. They're wider and flatter, and that is so they can catch the water from the fog and the rain.
Once you're at the top of the Sky Trail, you get a nice look at the misty redwood forest. On a clear day, you can see the ocean and the park's oldest redwood, the Brotherhood tree.
They think maybe even 3,000 years old, honestly. They've climbed it. They found all kinds of different animals. There's a bat cave in the middle. There's like salamanders and these little land crabs growing up in the top canopy.
Land crabs? It really moved there, doesn't it?
The newest attraction in the park is the Canopy Trail, which is essentially a series of high-flying rope bridges.
This had to have been a really experienced tree fort builder.
Tremendous is the company who did it, yes.
Treehouse construction company Tremendous also allowed us to use their drone video so that everyone who's afraid of heights could experience the Canopy Trail without walking it.
How far are we up right now?
About 100 feet from the trail down there.
Woo. Thank you for joining us here at Trees of Mystery.
Well, I hope you're ready for a little workout because we're about to pedal down the historic Amador Central Railroad on some rail bikes. The old Amador Central Railroad once transported lumber and supplies to gold mining communities in the Sierra foothills with large steam-powered locomotives. Today, though, the Amador Central Railroad primarily transports tourists on these rail-riding bicycles.
We're on Rail Explorers, custom-designed rail bikes, railroad commercial-grade equipment.
Rail Explorers are new to Amador County. My tour guide Heather Abel says the company started in the fall of 2023. These pedal-powered bikes start just outside the city of Ione and take you through a mix of green scrub oak and the rolling hills of gold country.
We're gonna do about 8 miles total.
That seems like a lot of legwork.
Well, I'm gonna stop pedaling and turn the motor off and go ahead and pedal.
Yeah, I can feel it.
Those hills that I mentioned get steep. For all you railroad enthusiasts, the track sometimes climbs up to a 4% grade. Lucky for riders, though, the rail bikes are equipped with electric motors to assist you up the hill. But just to be clear, it's not an effortless ride.
I don't just get the motor running and then kick back and relax. It's assisting me pedaling, which means I have to continuously pedal.
Once you pass the 3 traffic crossings, you'll start to pick up some speed, and the click-clack of the old steel railroad will give you a sense of what it was like when the locomotives ran through this area.
This is the Amador Central Railroad. It was originally the Ione and Eastern, so it's been around since 1904.
Are we gonna run into any locomotives today?
Absolutely not. The track is not being used by locomotives or the speeders.
Rail bikes are not actually a new invention. Version of these rail bikes have been around since the 1800s. Back then, they were called hand cars.
In the 1800s, there was rail bikes, and they were mostly just used for service, right? So people needed to get out to the gold mine.
As you gradually climb the hills, you'll cross over a bridge that intersects with Highway 88. From here, the green forests fade and the golden hills open up.
We're gonna run through a lot of private property. The views are spectacular.
While on the tracks, keep an eye out for grazing cattle and horses. They get up close to the tracks, but Heather assures me that the cows can't keep up with the rail bikes.
The speed limit on this track is 15 miles an hour.
The Amador Central Railroad is not a loop, so when you reach the end of the line, the bikes must be turned around on these battery-powered rail bike lifts, so you don't have to ride backwards.
Little lazy Susan for rail bikes or something.
Well, I don't like the word lazy when you're talking about my crew.
The ride home is much faster than the ride up. Rail bikes are a unique way to see Amador County. The bikes take very little effort, and pretty much anyone can ride them.
We bring out paraplegic folks and put them, so they get to experience the speed, the railroad, the pedaling if they can.
In all, the ride is about 2 hours long, just enough to get a cell phone full of selfies and a mild workout. Northern California has some of the best rafting in the state, but nothing compares to the thrill of navigating underground rapids on the American River. Let's grab a paddle and dive in. The middle fork of the American River. It's big. It's loud, and it's wild. This is Tunnel Chute.
That's a really deep hole!
It's the only rapid in California that takes rafters underground.
The water is very refreshing today. We are sitting at a nice crisp 48 degrees.
If you want to see Tunnel Chute up close, you may want to hitch a ride with Iowa Sherry, river guide with Sierra Whitewater.
Our next rapid here is going to be Junkyard.
Tunnel Chute is just 6 miles from Forest Hill in Placer County, but the only way to get there is on a raft, and that's because the land surrounding the rapid is a private mining claim.
1865 is when they really started hitting this river hard for gold.
Alright, so before Iowa takes us through Tunnel Chute, you need to understand the history behind this stretch of river.
And this tunnel is known as one of the 7 wonders of Placer County.
This is Tom Bartos. He owns the land and knows how the miners reshaped it.
The river used to run right through here, too?
Yes.
At the peak of the gold rush, Tom says miners discovered gold here at Horseshoe Bar, but to get at it, they actually had to divert the river.
Well, the river now flows through the tunnel, which the miners blew in the 1860s. They blew a tunnel.
That tunnel is more than 80 feet tall and 40 feet wide.
Below this sand and this rocks, they thought that there was gold.
They didn't think they knew there was gold.
It's estimated that nearly $1 billion worth of gold was removed from this stretch of river alone.
Are you mining this thing?
No. The only mine we mine for is fish.
California environmental rules and regulations have made gold mining in this area extremely difficult and not profitable. So today, Tom runs a fly fishing camp and hosts the occasional Hollywood production.
So yeah, we've shot 59 movies here.
59 movies?
And commercials.
Man may have moved the water here, but by no means did man tame the American River. Lake Shasta's waters are stunning, but hiding in the hills is a secret worth exploring, Shasta Caverns. It's the area's top tourist attraction. To get there, you'll have to hop on a boat to see these breathtaking caves. In 1887, long before the dam at Lake Shasta was built, a fish hatchery worker by the name of J.A. Richardson walked up the canyon from McCloud River and discovered a hole in the ground. what he found would later become one of the area's greatest tourist attractions, the Lake Shasta Caverns. Today, though, you can't just walk inside the caverns. You have to catch a boat ride to the entrance with Captain Cave Dave.
Why do they call you Cave Dave?
Well, the obvious answer is because it rhymes.
If you like witty comebacks, Cave Dave will keep you entertained for the entirety of the 10-minute boat ride.
Is there any lake monsters in Shasta Lake?
Well, if there were, I wouldn't tell you for safety reasons.
Once on the other side, you'll jump aboard a bus that'll take you to the top of a windy hill to the entrance, where you'll get what many consider as the best view of Lake Shasta.
Today we'll be entering through a man-made tunnel that was dug in the 1960s.
From here, cave tour guide Acacia Kopek takes over and warns you about the hefty amount of walking you're about to do.
If you are comfortable with the stairs, just follow me to the left and watch your steps. They never really end.
In all, there's about 600 stairs in the cavern, leading you up, down, and all around a windy maze of holes and shafts.
How long do you walk?
It's just under a mile long. We gain 200 feet in elevation in the cave and climb the equivalence of an 8-story building.
All that walking is worth it, especially when you make it to the first large opening, where you'll learn about the difference between stalactites and stalagmites.
Stalactites hang tight to the ceiling and have a C in them for ceiling, so they're growing down, as to where the stalagmites might reach the ceiling someday and have a G in them for ground, so they're the formations growing up from the floor.
Stalactites and stalagmites form as mineral-rich water seeps through the cracks in the caverns, and slowly those minerals start to accumulate.
How long did it take to make this thing?
Well, they only grow 1 inch every 100 years, so it's really slow. Our cave is actually estimated to be about 3.5 million years old.
As you make your way up and down the steps, you may get a little hungry. Good news for you, the cave produces another natural mineral formation called cave bacon, named for its wavy structure.
Cave bacon, if you licked that, do you think it would taste like bacon?
No, it wouldn't taste like much at all, actually.
Acacia says not only is the cave bacon tasteless, but so is the cave popcorn. This sparkly, puffy mineral deposit uniquely covers this small opening.
They call this the popcorn room. Pretty sure that Orville Redenbacher discovered it. That's not true.
Acacia isn't sure why so many mineral deposits are named after food, but licking and touching the rocks, for that matter, is strictly prohibited because they're very fragile. The first explorers of the caverns found that out the hard way when they used dynamite to widen the passageways.
Luckily, as water flows over them, the formations will start to grow again.
The Lake Shasta Cavern opened up for commercial tours in 1964, and that's when they started adding steps and handrails. Prior to that, visitors lowered themselves into the cave's natural entrance with ropes.
Is that where the first cave tours came in through too?
Yeah, a lot of field trips from schools in the area, and a lot of people from the town of Baird came through the natural entrance.
Field trips were a little different back in the day, I think.
Yeah, just a tad.
Yeah.
Not only did the visitors have to climb in with ropes, but they toured the cave with just candles.
But today, we get to see a whole lot more because we have electricity.
It may be a lot of walking, but the Lake Shasta Caverns truly are a wonder to see and worth the travel it takes to get here.
Well, thanks for watching Bartell's Backroads. I hope some of these stories have inspired you to get out there and do a road trip of your own. I'm John Bartell. Hope to see you on the Backroads. Ready or not, here we go. Oh, hey, Paul. This is the place to do it. Travel reporter John Bartell here. You know, there's nothing like a day at the beach. And here in California, there's over 840 miles of coastline to explore. So whether you're swimming, fishing, or just enjoying the sand, there's no shortage of things to do. But if you're here in La Jolla, in San Diego County, I highly suggest renting a kayak and checking out the sea caves. Just watch out for the sea creatures below.
Just north of San Diego, along the La Jolla coastline, there's a series of cliffside caves guarded by an assortment of sea creatures. The caves are no secret as they lie under a series of multi-million-dollar homes, but getting a look inside those caves is a bit challenging.
All right, ready?
I got wet underwear now.
All you, let's see what you got.
That is, unless you have a kayak and an experienced guide like Bodie Savage.
No seasickness yet? Cool. Let me know if you are, because it doesn't get better. You can't really fight it.
Bodie will not only get you to the caves, but he'll also help you navigate through the zoo of sea creatures. And the first you'll most likely come across are the migrating leopard sharks.
During the summer, there will be thousands of them here.
It takes about 20 minutes to paddle to the caves. Along the way, Bodie explains how they were formed.
So the waves slowly erode these caves, whereas that cliffside over there, if it hits a good spot, the whole cliff will fall down.
Bodie says a fault line in the Earth's crust is pushing up two different types of sandstone, and the waves erode each type of sandstone differently. The La Jolla Caves are made from a strong sandstone that erodes away like Swiss cheese, but the sandstone underneath the multi-million-dollar homes is soft.
What do you guys think that means for these houses over here? They're going down, right? These houses are all condemned. Not condemned, but they are condemned by the city of San Diego to fall in at one point in time.
Back in 2023, a bluff collapsed at Torrey Pines State Beach, sending parts of the cliff into the ocean. In 2015, a part of the bluff also collapsed, causing major damage to this home's pool. You know what else is living on the edge? A colony of seabirds, like cormorants and pelicans, who painted the bluff in what's known as San Diego snow.
What is all this white stuff up there?
That would be our San Diego snow. Anyone, did you smell it yet? Yeah, it's bird poop.
Right below the bird's poop deck lives a school of brightly colored orange Garibaldis, which is the official marine state fish of California.
Why are they so bright?
They actually start off as like a little blue tint, and they gain that color over time by secreting the urine through their scales.
So essentially, if you're eating the skin on this fish, you're eating the pee?
Yep, pretty gross.
Once you get by all those sea creatures, we pass by the Sunny Jim's Cave, a partially man-made cave that you can access by entering the cave store on top of the cliff. I did a separate Backroads episode on the odd history if you want to watch it.
You guys ready? We're gonna go get into a cave just right around the corner over here, okay?
The moment finally came when Bodie took us inside one of the sea caves. The ocean was a little rough, so he got in the water and swam us through the small entrance. Inside the cave, you can see the years of erosion up close.
These caves are estimated to be around 75 million years old.
Paddling through the La Jolla Caves is an exciting and enlightening experience, but if you ask me, the journey to the caves is just as special. If you ever wanted to snowboard but don't like the cold, try sandboarding. The Oceano Dunes in San Luis Obispo County are the perfect place to learn. No frostbite, just a little sand in your shorts. Shaped by the Central California coastal winds is a vast sandbox known as the Oceano Dunes. Trudging up these 200-foot tall sand piles can be a daunting task. But if you have a sandboard, you can cover a lot more ground. If you're unfamiliar with the sport of sandboarding, you're not alone. I too was unaware.
Show them in there, huh?
Lucky for me, the kind folks over at the Oceano Surf Shack set me up with a sandboard and introduced me to one of the pioneers of this sandy sport.
My buddy and I, Gary Flewitt, kind of pioneered what we call modern sandboarding. Okay. Sandboarding's been around since ancient Egypt.
In the 1980s, Jack Smith helped introduce the world to sandboarding in the Scott Dietrich film Adventures in Paradise.
Sandboarding and snowboarding have a lot of crossover to them. You know, snowboarding is nice because you have the lifts. You don't have that in sandboarding.
But what's nice about here is you don't get very cold.
You don't get cold. Look at us, we're all in shorts.
Unlike snowboards, sandboards don't need any special boots or bindings. However, they do share one important similarity. You need to apply wax to the bottom of the board to ensure a smooth ride down the hill.
This is just
wax, paraffin wax from the grocery store.
Okay, candle wax almost.
Yeah.
Just like snowboarding, the wax makes your sandboard go faster.
All right, ready or not, here we go.
Yeah! Yeah!
But unlike snowboarding, the sand is much harder than the snow, and when you're ready to head back up to the top of the dunes, there's no chairlift to take you there. You'll just have to make the climb on foot.
I mean, if you're going to be serious about it, you spend a lot more time walking up than you do going down.
One man trying to make the world of sandboarding more appealing is Lon Beal.
I'm known all over the internet as Dr. Dune, the inventor of sandboarding.
Lon, aka Dr. Dune, was building sandboards as a kid in the 1960s and 70s. He loved it so much that he started selling sandboards. Then in 2000, he opened up Sandmaster Park in Florence, Oregon, which is the only sandboarding specific sport park in the US. Unfortunately, there's still no chairlifts here either.
We go to the big dunes, we take dune buggies to the top. We don't hike it. But on the smaller coastal dunes, the hike up's pretty easy.
No matter how you look at it, sandboarding is a physical sport, but it's one that almost anyone can pick up, as long as there's a sandy dune nearby. Sea caves, ocean pinnacles, and cliffside erosion, California's coast is full of geological wonders. But the strangest formations I've ever seen is a cluster of bowling ball-shaped boulders that emerge from the tide just below Point Arena in Mendocino County. The sandy cliff sides of Schooner Gulch State Beach offer some stark views along Highway 1. But if you take the steep staircase down the gulch and do a little rock climbing to the water's edge, you'll end up next to a row of spherical boulders.
That's just wild.
The boulders are round like bowling balls, but way too big for humans to pick up, posing the question, how did they get here?
There's mystery around it. I mean, it could be aliens, right?
There's been a lot of speculation on how the bowling ball-shaped rocks ended up here, but state park interpreter Steve Yahelka assures me that aliens had nothing to do with it.
As the water is washing over them over and over again, it just is forming these perfect spheres.
Erosion. That's what's shaping the rocks around here, and erosion is revealing a geological phenomenon known as concretion, or the compression of sedimentary rocks.
They compress. It's just pretty much compressed sand.
The towering cliffside above Bowling Ball Beach is actually highly compressed sand, and every once in a while, pieces of the compressed sand break off and land on the beach. Over millions of years, the pounding waves erode the sandy rocks into smooth balls.
Yeah, if you're a geology nerd, tell you what, it's a place for you.
There's only a handful of places in the world that create rock structures like this. It's a great place to hike and take pictures, but remember, you can only experience the rocks at Bowling Ball Beach at low tide, so check a tide chart before you go. Well, you want to bring your camera to this Marin County beach. The Point Reyes shipwreck in Inverness has a great backstory and attracts thousands of photographers and sightseers every year. Located in the little town of Inverness in Marin County is the SS Point Reyes shipwreck. It was once the victim of treacherous waters of Tomales Bay. Now the SS Point Reyes is a photographer's dream.
This day is absolutely gorgeous. We've got just a few puffy clouds. We're going to do some long exposures after a while and get the clouds drifting by.
After this fishing boat ran aground, it was dragged to its current location where it was supposed to be repaired. Instead, the land that the ship sits on was purchased and turned into a wetland reserve.
Just the name, Point Reyes. Sir Francis Drake, a lot of history in this area.
The SS Point Reyes was supposed to be removed, but local photographers fought to keep it the tourist attraction that it is today.
Usually morning light and evening light is better. During the middle of the day, you get this beautiful haze.
The ship is accessible during low tide, but be careful. The wood is rotting, and the stern of the ship was set on fire by vandals back in 2017. Sex on the beach. That's exactly what's happening along this stretch of Los Angeles coast. Every full moon, tiny finger-length fish called grunion wiggle their way out of the ocean and onto the sand, putting on a fascinating dance show before mating right on the beach. When the moon and the tide is just right in Los Angeles County, flocks of black-crowned night herons start to gather along the shores in San Pedro.
So this is Cabrillo Beach, outer Cabrillo Beach.
That's also when Jim DePompe heads to the beach.
So we have a permit this evening to collect about 10 grunion fish so that we can try and keep them in captivity.
Jim is with the Cabrillo Marine Aquarium, and tonight a small group of curious spectators have come to help him catch the protected grunion fish.
It's very exciting. I've always wanted to come to one of these, and now I've been able to show up, so it's like the best thing ever for me.
Jim doesn't use a net, a fishing pole, or a boat for that matter.
Now we're coming here. Okay, this is good. Now we're building.
And that's because the grunion fish come to him.
But if you look out in the water, you'll see there's even more grunion out there shining in the water out there, just waiting to come up onto the beach.
You are witnessing the annual grunion run. These little 6-inch swimmers are among the only fish in the world who beach themselves on purpose. And it's all in the name of love.
Well, it is sex on the beach.
The love session you are witnessing only takes place between the months of February and August. It only happens a few nights a year, and the Cabrillo Marine Aquarium invites the public to witness what quite possibly could be the oddest mating ritual in the marine world.
So here we have a couple females dug in the sand. Here we have a male wrapped around the female. That male is depositing milt.
You mentioned the word milt. What is milt?
It's just another name for sperm.
Sperm, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
To better explain what is going on below the sand, Jim took me inside the Cabrillo Marine Aquarium.
And as you add the water, you should see the eggs pop out of the sand.
Jim says grunion need to lay eggs and fertilize them in dry sand, and the only way to do that is when the moon is just right and the tide is at its highest.
And it knows when it's a new moon and full moon. And it comes up a couple of days after the new moon and the full moon.
During the full moon and high tide, the grunion lay and fertilize eggs. When the tide starts to recede, those grunion eggs start to develop.
It's literally just kind of happening in my hand here.
Here's where the magic happens. 10 to 15 days later, a new moon brings back the high tide again, and the water triggers the eggs to hatch.
And then eventually the water will reach it again and remove the sand, and the little babies will hatch out.
Grunion is easy prey for birds, and that's one reason they're protected. Humans can fish for grunion, but the season has strict regulations and only lasts a few days a year.
And she can be out of water for 5-10 minutes or so and just be totally fine.
Lucky for these grunion, they're headed to the aquarium, where they'll be studied and displayed to the public for educational purposes.
Yeah. Very unique. They're the only known fish that digs in the sand out of the water to lay their eggs.
Well, up next on our tour of California beaches, we head over to Marin County for a one-of-a-kind culinary experience. The Tamales Bay is premier oyster habitat, and the Hog Island Oyster Company took me out and showed me how they were farmed.
This is the Hog Island Oyster Fields, and John Finger is the co-founder and farmer.
The technical term is a mariculturist.
A mariculturist.
So in aquaculture, right? You talk about aquaculture. Mariculture is aquaculture in the sea.
John knows a thing or two about the oyster business. He and his partner, Terry Sawyer, planted the first oyster seeds in this very spot back in 1983.
You know, we get growth almost year-round here, but see this leading edge? That's like putting another ring down of a tree.
An oyster is a mollusk, but in a way, they're a lot like a tree. When they're young, oysters go through a seed stage, and when they grow up, they filter water, just like a tree filters air.
So these guys are actually cleaning the water?
Yes, exactly. You know, there's a lot of areas of the world now where they're trying to put more oysters back into bays just for the purposes of making the bay healthier.
After about 2 years of cleaning the Tamales Bay, the Hog Island oysters take a vacation of sorts. If you ask me, the best part of oyster harvest is quality control.
When does an oyster become not fresh? How many days?
I mean, generally about 4 to 5 days if you keep them well iced or refrigerated.
After shucking the oyster, it's customary to give the meat a little flip in the shell before flicking it in your mouth.
And then if you need to, you can give a little finger skip. Yep. Taste the ocean.
It's salty.
It's the merroir.
The merroir.
Merroir is just a fancy word for the location that the oysters were grown in.
Oysters will be reflective of whatever bay they're grown in.
The time and the tide wait for no one in the Tamales Bay. And because of that, the unique taste of its waters is reflected in the oysters that live here. So the next time you slurp down an oyster, remind yourself how hard it was to harvest them. 200 miles north of San Francisco, there's a remote state park located inside of California's Lost Coast region. It's known as the Sinkion Wilderness, and it's one of the few stretches of coastline left undeveloped and unchanged since the California Gold Rush. Shaped by earthquakes and pounded by waves and fog, this place is so rugged that paved roads couldn't be built here. In fact, the only way to explore this state park is to drive down a very bumpy and windy one-lane dirt path.
As rugged as this drive is, it is honestly just gorgeous. We're in like a rainforest right now.
The wilderness is the main attraction at this state park, and it's not uncommon for a herd of Roosevelt elk to be grazing or resting in the limited parking spaces.
There aren't a lot of amenities here. It's part of what makes this place beautiful.
Other than the rustic visitor center and a few camping spots, Park Ranger Marnin Robbins says the land here looks almost the way it did when the Sinkion tribe lived here.
They were able to keep this wonderful standard of living here for so long through their tending of this landscape. It was a Garden of Eden.
For more than 1,000 years, the ocean provided the Sinkion with much of their food and the forest with much of their shelter. But when gold was discovered in California, the Sinkion's way of life was taken from them.
There was an idea of manifest destiny, that this place belonged to the white man.
In the 1950s, settlers began logging the Sinkion's land. A conflict with the tribe led to the Needle Rock Massacre. The settlers slaughtered many of the Sinkion tribe members.
It was a dark time in our history, and it's important for people to know that, and to also realize that those Native people are still here with us today, and that we have a lot to learn from them.
Hiking trails throughout the park take you through the Sinkion's territory. There's little trace of the settlers' old logging camps left, and that's because the plants and animals have reclaimed the land.
You know, if you ever wanted to contemplate some big things in life, this is definitely the place to do it.
The Sinkion Wilderness is a marine protected area, home to birds, fish, and whales, all of which you can see if you're patient and respectful.
This is a transformational place. There's very few places, especially in California, where you can have a true feeling of solitude.
Often overlooked by those driving by, the Point Sur Lighthouse offers amazing views of California's coastline. And let me tell you, you're gonna get your steps in for the day on this beautiful tour.
It's easy to get distracted by the beautiful coastal scenery and pass by the poorly marked lock gate at Point Sur.
People come all the time and say, you know, I've driven by this for 30 years. I've never come up here.
But if you join any one of the weekly tours, the Central Coast Lighthouse Keepers group will open up the gates and take you inside.
So here's 61 steps that the Coast Guard put in for us.
Built in 1889, the Point Sur Lighthouse protected cargo and passenger ships from the rocky, shallow waters along the Monterey coastline.
You could see the flash of this light 23.5 miles because that's where the horizon is.
A large electric light rotates at the top of the lighthouse today, but in the beginning, the lighthouse keepers had a much more primitive way of signaling ships.
It started out as a wick, 5 wicks, and that's why they call these guys wickies. They would light that and trim it and make it a nice bright light.
Just a warning, the lighthouse tours involve a fair amount of walking, which gives you an idea of what lighthouse keepers had to do on a daily basis. Their living quarters were pretty simple back then. Before Highway 1 was built, there was no electricity, and the plumbing was primitive.
John, this is what we call the privy slab. Back in the day, there was an outhouse on here. There's a hole there, and everything just went out to the ocean.
The job of a lighthouse keeper was tough and lonely, but extremely important. Ships still use the lighthouse beacon today, but the beacon no longer requires a keeper.
Yeah, this whole rock and all the buildings, everything, are now taken care of with this one solar panel and these LEDs.
A walk on the beach can be romantic, but the bike ride lets you cover a lot more ground. If you want to see all of Monterey County's Pebble Beach, I recommend renting an electric bike and cruising along the picturesque 17-mile drive. It's arguably one of the most celebrated scenic roads in California. On one side of the road is world-class golfing and homes that only the rich can afford. On the other is unforgettable coastal views and wildlife. It'll cost you $11.25 to drive a car on 17-mile drive, but if you're on an electric bike, it's free.
You know, the best part about the e-bike is, if you get tired, you don't have to pedal.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I don't have an e-bike, so I took a tour with Florendo Salas from Big Sur Adventures in Pacific Grove.
So they call it 17-mile drive. I mean, is it really 17 miles?
It's really 17 miles, yeah.
Before the expensive homes and the golf courses, Pebble Beach was a sand mine owned by the Pacific Improvement Company, which was a consortium of railroad barons.
And so they came in, they brought the railroads all the way up to here, and they created a sand plant that essentially took all of the dunes that were here.
In 1892, 17-Mile Drive was built, and it was built for two reasons. First, to provide activity for the wealthy guests staying at the Hotel Del Monte in Monterey, and two, to sell land near the newly constructed golf courses.
17-Mile Drive was basically created as an opportunity to show people the real estate that the Pacific Improvement Company owned along this section of coastline.
As time went on, more money was pumped into development, and people from all over the world started taking tours of 17-Mile Drive to experience the amenities and natural wonders of Pebble Beach. Wonders like the beaches and the vibrant blue water, which is unique to the Monterey coast.
So the beaches along Pebble Beach are just quartz crystals. That's that beautiful white sand. When you get the sunlight reflecting off those crystals down below, we get these blues, we get these greens, and this is just, it's gorgeous.
Tourists aren't the only ones attracted to Pebble Beach. Marine animals like seals, otters, whales, and migrating birds call this stretch of ocean home.
Is that snow all over that rock there? Is that what that is?
No snow here.
And a great spot to see some of those marine animals is at the iconic white-colored Bird Rock.
Come here 100 years ago, there would have been a lot more white stuff on there. Okay. So in the 1930s, they actually came out and harvested all of the guano, basically all the bird poop, off of this rock because, well, that's a great fertilizer. And what do you have around us? A lot of lawn, right? Golf courses everywhere.
Just a few miles from Bird Rock is another icon at Pebble Beach, the lone cypress.
One of the most photographed, I think, in the country is what they say now, yeah. Possibly the world. I can't imagine there's another tree that gets more recognition than this.
Holding on for dear life at the edge of a rocky spire, the lone cypress is estimated to be more than 250 years old and is among the last of California's old-growth Monterey cypress.
This is it, yeah. This is the last place on the planet that they've been able to find a way to survive.
These wind-beaten trees can survive gale-force storms and pounding waves, but they require the unique foggy climate that only the Monterey coast can provide.
What that does is as the fog runs through these trees, they're able to actually gather that moisture and precipitate down, and during the summer months, these trees will basically water themselves.
Monterey cypress only live about 300 years, and the old-growth Monterey cypress at Pebble Beach are nearing the end of their life. But had it not been for the protections put in place by developers at Pebble Beach, the wildlife and the trees may have been lost.
And so it's one of those things that it's here for now, but it's not forever. And it's just one of those, a reminder for us, I think, of the impermanence here on the coast and also how wild the coast is.
Well, thanks for watching Bartell's Backroads Special Edition California Beaches. I hope it's inspired you to take a road trip of your own. I'm John Bartell. Hope to see you on the Backroads.